Hi, I'm Bryce. Let's do a quick coloring activity. Let's learn more about images from space telescopes. So for this activity, we need a coloring key and coloring page, as well as some crayons. To begin with, pick 6 colors. These can be any color you want. Write them down 1 through 6. This will make our coloring kind of like a Mad Libs, only for coloring. Next, color your coloring page based on the colors you picked. You might be able to make out what it is supposed to be, but make sure you follow your key. Here's my final picture. Can you tell what the stuff is? Usually, we think of an apple being red, but mine is blue. But what does this have to do with images from space telescopes? Let's ask an expert.
Great job! I'm Elise Pagan. I'm a science visuals developer who works at Space Telescope Science Institute, and we are associated with NASA. We take data from Hubble and other observatories, and we make pretty pictures of space.
I'm Joe DePasquale. I am also a science visuals developer at the Space Telescope Science Institute. And like Elisa, my work is to take the data from the Hubble Space Telescope and other telescopes and create imagery and visualizations for press releases or outreach products, and pull all that information together to help get the word out about the amazing science that we do at Space Telescope. My job is to take data from the telescope and turn it into imagery. The way that we do that is we actually go into the archive and pull raw data out of the archive of different objects the telescope has observed. It will observe those objects in multiple wavelengths of light. And that's actually sort of the core of where the colors come from, because we take those multiple wavelengths and we assign colors to them. The longest wavelengths are assigned redder colors, and then as we move into shorter wavelengths, we move to blue. And so when we pull all that together and we've assigned those colors accordingly, we end up with a full color image made up of red, green, and blue.
Kind of a true color representation is what we call it. Sometimes we do with imagery that doesn't have that direct translation. We're dealing with narrow wavelength ranges that are telling us a little bit something more particular or different, kind of like a particular hot gas or dust or composition. And sometimes we have to change that color to get a really interesting image that speaks to the science of what we're looking at.
So the challenge with infrared light is we need to take sort of the same model of coloring that we use for optical and transfer it into infrared. So we expect to get data from the Webb telescope that will have shorter wavelengths of infrared light and longer wavelengths of infrared light. And in general, we'll apply the same principles of giving shorter wavelengths bluer colors and longer wavelengths redder colors to then combine all the data together to make color images.
Alyssa and Joe, how did I do?
The coloring that you did really connects to what we do.
There's very specific colors attributed to certain phenomenon or particular filters, just like in the picture where it's just sky is one color. And then you had like the ground is one color and the sun is one color. You know just by that color that you're seeing that you're looking at the sky. And it's the same thing with things like if you're looking at a galaxy and you know, oh, that magenta, that's where star forming is happening. Or, oh, that's blue in that galaxy. That must be a really hot young star. So it is very similar. And when you color code it in that way, you can learn a lot.
The Hubble Space Telescope is still in space, still doing amazing work. You can even see it pass overhead if you know where to look and you've got dark skies.
But there's a new telescope in town, the James Webb Space Telescope. But it's not a replacement for Hubble. So why Webb?
JWST is a reflective telescope. It works in the infrared. It's designed to detect the first stars and first galaxies that's ever formed in this universe.
So right after the Big Bang, seeing how the first light was actually created.
And so it works in what's known as infrared light.
Infrared light is actually a wavelength of light that's just beyond what we can actually see. So if we could tone our eyes into seeing how hot or how cold somebody was, that would be what infrared light is really tracing, is that thermal radiation.
Our atmosphere actually prevents infrared light from reaching the surface, so a ground-based telescope would not be able to detect these signatures. So we need to launch this into space away from the atmosphere. And to work in the infrared, it needs to be cold. Otherwise, the optics and the instruments are warm, and what it'll measure is instead itself, rather than these light signatures from the very early universe. In order to keep it cold, that's why we have a 5-layer sun shield to reflect sunlight and prevents it from heating up the instruments and the mirrors.
We want to know how galaxies actually started to form and evolve. Did they start from a couple of stars, or was it a giant energy burst? What actually was that process and how they were formed? We want to know how planets and stars are actually being born in their own dusty areas in space. That's something that we can't see with other wavelengths, so having the longer wavelengths than the infrared really shows us how some of these planets and stars are actually being born. In the solar system, we want to know what the atmosphere of Mars is doing from a more global perspective. While we have rovers and orbiters going around it, they only get that sort of, airplane or local car sort of perspective. When we look at it with a telescope that's a bit further away, we can see the whole global climate of another planetary body. Jupiter and Saturn, the moons around these planets, we want to know what's going on with them.
But the Webb telescope is so powerful that it can do other things. It will track the evolution of galaxies through the entire age of the universe, essentially. And something else that's very exciting, which is if you point JWST at nearby stars, there is a good chance that if these stars harbor planets, that Webb will be able to detect those. And if nature cooperates, and we're very lucky, there are opportunities potentially that we can detect atmospheres
and see if any of them are like Earth. If they have water, if they have a nitrogen atmosphere, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, the things that we find in our own atmosphere.
Once you can detect atmospheres, a whole new field of interesting things can open up.
He's looking at me.
Some of our snake friends, including this ball python and most vipers, see in the infrared spectrum. It helps them see their prey. This means that they can see the infrared radiation, which is invisible to the human eye. Let's see how you can learn more about infrared light. The James Webb Space Telescope will be using the infrared spectrum to look at our cosmos in ways we have never seen before.
Any form of matter, no matter how hot or cold, gives off thermal energy. This includes everything like chairs and books and even food.
Everything around us, even the Earth, radiates thermal energy, even stars.
Thermal energy is the primary source of what we call infrared radiation. This is the section of the electromagnetic spectrum just beyond visible light in terms of wavelength size.
We cannot see infrared radiation, but technology allows us to detect and take pictures in this part of the spectrum.
NASA, NOAA, and other agencies use infrared imagery to study the Earth in ways beyond what we can see. The James Webb Space Telescope will collect infrared light and allow us to see back to when stars and galaxies started forming.
Over 200 years ago, Sir William Herschel discovered the existence of infrared by studying sunlight passing through a prism, like you might find in your classroom.
The prism separated all the colors that make up sunlight into an array called a spectrum.
Here's how you can see the phenomenon that William Herschel first observed. He measured the temperatures of the different colors of light and found that the temperatures increased from violet to red.
What he also noticed was what happened just beyond the visible spectrum. The temperature increased even more.
To try this yourself, take a box outside and measure the temperature inside the box in the shade. Then adjust the prism so the spectrum is as wide as possible. Place the thermometers in the blue, yellow, and the area just beyond the red.
You should see the temperatures increase as we approach the infrared area of the spectrum.
It might seem like it's a big jump to go from a prism on a box to the light that the James Webb Space Telescope will collect. But there's more to energy and light than meets the eye. It's like we have our own time machine.
Where we're going, we don't need roads. This is
7:30.
They're pretty good.
The Hubble Space Telescope and the James Webb Space Telescope are engineering marvels.
Hubble has changed the way we view the universe, and soon Webb will be looking at some of the oldest light, allowing us to see almost back to the Big Bang.
As these images begin to come in, we hope you look at them with awe and wonder, but also a bit of understanding of how they were taken, what they represent, and the science behind the telescopes that took them.
If you like this video, be sure to give it a share and let us know what your favorite part was down in the comments section.
And be sure to follow STEM in 30 on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to the National Air and Space Museum's YouTube channel.
We leave you today with some of the stunning images taken by the Hubble Space Telescope.
Thanks for watching.
About 1 minute.
All right.
Stand by. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting of September 18th, 2023. This is Select Board Chair Tom Lacusa. I will be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Josh Levine?
Yes. Here.
Vineeth Hemavathi?
Here.
Mark Gold?
Here.
Dan Zwerko?
Here.
And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons?
Here.
Mike Barbieri?
Here.
This open meeting of the Long Meadow Select Board is convened in person and via Zoom webinar, as posted in the agenda on the town's website. Identifying how the public may join is on the website. There's no chat or Q&A function. All the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted at longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will feature resident comments. For residents attending the meeting in person, please raise your hand when we get to the comment section of the meeting, and I will call on you to approach the microphone. For residents participating meeting via Zoom webinar format, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen. The meeting moderator will promote you to panelist, unmute you, and give you permission to speak. If you join the webinar by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, *6 to mute, unmute. Residents who wish to speak will identify their names and addresses only. Each individual is afforded 3 minutes for comment. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, and some attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now. Okay. Please note that we have a scheduled public hearing at 7:30 tonight. At that time, we will vote to enter the hearing, and business will resume as normal after the hearing concludes. Now we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll stand. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with some announcements. Just one, really. It's that the 2023 Fall Special Town Meeting article submission are going to be due in the Select Board's office no later than 12 p.m. on September 22nd, 2023. The town meeting will happen on Tuesday, November 7th, 2023, at the Long Meadow High School Gymnasium. In order for a petition to be guaranteed placement on the special town meeting warrant, 100 names, signatures, addresses of registered town voters are required and must be certified by the town clerk. For additional information about town meetings and forms and instructions to be used for petition articles, please visit the town website, www.longmeadowma.gov/townmeeting. Next is resident comments. Is there anyone in the audience or in Zoom care to make comment?
Don't see anyone.
No? Okay. Next, we have interviews and appointments. And we have 3 interviews scheduled for tonight's meeting. The first is a rescheduled interview for the Municipal Task Force. Is Stephen Locke in attendance?
Don't see him on the Zoom. I indicated in an email last week that I had invited him back for a rescheduled interview, but did not see anything from him since, so if it permits, you might just want to move to the next person.
Okay, if he shows up, we'll move up to the next while we do the section, and it might be that we'll, have to move forward, because we're running out of time for this task force to be able to do much before the town meeting. William Harbison is looking for a reappointment to the Community Preservation Committee. Is he here with us?
He's in Zoom. I'm going to move him in now.
Okay. Can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Thank you, Mr. Harbison.
Can hear me.
So, thanks for your interest in the Community Preservation Committee. Do you want to just tell us, give us your name and address and a little bit about yourself, why you're interested in this committee?
I'm William Harbison, Dr. William Harbison. My address is 217 Farmington Road, Long Meadow. I have been a member of the Community Preservation Commission. I reapplied for another 3-year term in May. I applied online, but somehow there was some sort of mix-up, and I never was asked to interview, or maybe I was supposed to plan that myself. But when I found out that I wasn't on the committee anymore, I sprang into action last week and reapplied and got myself on this interview tonight.
Okay. And is there anything about your participation in that committee that you would want to share with the board? I mean, that you like, or?
Well, I really find it very satisfying to be on that committee. I think that it's a wonderful asset for the town, for people to be able to, and organizations to be able to come up with a project that they don't have or are not able to get funding for. And this is a town entity where they can apply for funds, and we have several different designations, as you know. There's housing and open space, recreation, just a lot of different possibilities for people to apply for funds and get projects done. And this last year we had some really good projects. We worked on the upgrade for the disability for the playgrounds. We weren't able to provide all the funds, but we got them some money, and they were able to get some additional funding. It was very satisfying for me to see the culmination of the whole multi-year project we did with Wolf Swamp Fields. They just look beautiful. And so that was very satisfying to me, and it's a satisfying group of people to work with, too. so we do debate these projects a good bit. We had quite a lot of debate last year about the skate park, and I think there was one other that we debated and voted on, and it was close votes. But we do a lot of thinking about these. Some are fairly straightforward, some do require a lot of input, and so it's been very interesting for me.
That's great, and it's a big help to the town government to have folks who, like yourself, who will go over all those applications. Any questions, Mark?
Yeah, Dr. Harbison, thanks for applying. My question really, I guess it's a two-part question, but the first part is just to ask that, did you support the renovations to the Glenbrook Fields? And as you were answering that, I'll tell you the second part is, because it was applied for without the knowledge of the owner of the fields. And so I want to get into a discussion about that, but you can...
But I think we supported it, but there were modifications that we asked Stuart Sagnador to make, I believe. So when we did do the final recommendation, I believe I support it, but I can't remember. There was one meeting that I actually missed, so it's possible that was the one.
My concern, Bill, is that we get people applying for funds to renovate a facility they don't own, and that puts an onus on the owner of the facility, to wit, the town. When somebody comes along and says, I want to get $50,000 to redo the Glenbrook Fields, the town doesn't have the resources to do it, and clearly this group wasn't going to be able to do it. I think we need to, and I'm, you're one of the first people to come here before the board from the community preservation, since this really came to a head. But I think, personally, I want to get the community preservation committee to understand they've got to get the facility owner, to approve it. It's no different from me petitioning to replace all the windows at St. Mary's Church, and you approve that, and then you go to St. Mary's and say, here's the money, you got to go do it, and they don't have the time, the effort, or to go do it.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I think that one of the seems to be off this meeting here. Am I still on?
Yes, you're still on. Yep.
I don't, for some reason I'm not on. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. I think there were some issues that we had a lot of discussion about the fact that we didn't know what was going to be happening with the middle schools, whether they were, what site they were going to use, and how this money was going to be, whether it was going to be worthwhile to do it for a several-year project, or was this going to be a more long-term thing. And so we had quite a debate about that, but I understand your point. I mean, we do need to get input from the appropriate sources, but that's something that the applicant should do as well.
Okay, thank you for entertaining that question. Any other questions from the board? All right, so we will get back to you,
Sure.
As we get closer to making an appointment for our next meeting. So thank you for coming tonight.
Okay, thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice. Yeah.
Our next interview would be Dustin McConnell for a new appointment to the Capital Planning Committee. Yeah, please tell us your name and your address and your interest in capital planning.
Sure. My name is Dustin McConnell, 133 Lawnwood Avenue in Longmeadow. My wife and I live here in Longmeadow with my two kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-week-old. And really just looking to get involved in the community in any way that I can, help the town in any way that I can, and I thought this would be a really good opportunity to kick that off.
Good, thanks for stepping forward. Again, we went to a regional town select board meeting, and they're saying they're having trouble getting people to volunteer, and so I hope you see this as something that would be good for your resume also, and good for everything else. Any questions from the board?
Go ahead, Josh.
Can you explain your background? Do you do any financial work?
Sure. So I am a financial advisor at UBS. So I think there are a couple of things that might lend itself to working on a capital planning committee. I do work as a part of a team, so there is a team aspect. A lot of active listening, communication skills have been developed. And then, of course, from a financial perspective, recognizing, developing goals, strategically approaching those goals, taking different variables into consideration. So, my background currently is in finance as an advisor at UBS.
Have you reviewed any of the capital budgets that have come through the last couple town meetings?
No, that's not something that I've been able to review. I would look forward to reviewing those. I think that there would be a lot for me to learn from other committee members, but I am willing to learn. I'm willing to be educated in any way that I can be.
Okay, thanks. Mark?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you'd had a chance to speak with any of the other members of the
No,
capital
sir.
planning. You
No.
ought to call Dr. Metz, Stephen Metz. Just shoot the breeze with him. It'd be just a good opportunity.
Yeah. All right, great. Any
He's
other
the chair.
comments?
We can
Okay.
give you the
I'll share
Michael
with
will
I,
give you the contact.
I saw his name on the website.
Okay.
Everything
On
else.
the website.
Yeah,
Good.
it's right there.
All right, well, thank you for coming in. We'll make a decision probably the next meeting or so, right?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And any, left from Mr. Locke? No.
I don't think so, yeah.
All right, so we move into appointments. We had 4 residents who were interviewed for board and committee vacancies at a prior meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion for appointments?
Yeah, I will. Hold on, let me.
We have Catherine Ferrero for
I
the
can get
Council
started
of
on it.
Aging.
Go ahead.
I move to appoint Catherine Ferrero to the Council on Aging Board of Directors to fill a vacant 3-year term expiring on June 30th, 2024.
Second. You have a second, okay. All those in favor? Okay.
All right. I move to appoint Douglas Taylor to the Energy and Sustainability Committee to fill a vacant 3-year term expiring on June 30th, 2025.
Second? You second it? Okay. All those in favor? Okay.
I move to appoint Tom King to the Historical Commission to fill a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2026.
Second.
A second. All those in favor?
And then for this one is Mr. Tortolo.
Tortolot? Yeah.
Tortolot. He's
It's a reappointment, right?
He was doing the 5-year term, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I move to appoint James Tortolo to fill the vacant 5-year term expiring June 30th, 2028.
Second.
Second, okay. All those in favor? All right. Okay, so in terms of the next item is the Municipal Task Force for fiber. And we received 14 letters, including interest in the Municipal Fiber Task Force, as posted at the deadline of August 28th. And 9 candidates were interviewed at the September 5th meeting. And if only one interviewed, well, we didn't have one interviewed, okay. So we have 9 members. We should now discuss the membership of the task force and make a decision on how to proceed with appointments. Because, as we look at what this task force would be doing, they would be reporting to, not the November town meeting, but the fall town meeting, or the meeting in the spring town. So we'd like to get them started. Would any members care to comment on if they think 9 is an adequate number, or?
No, I'll just start. As good as all the applicants were, I think we got to limit it. I mean, at some point it gets unwieldy in terms of their ability to get things done and what we're doing. I'd like to make it as large as possible, but I don't think going above 9 makes a whole lot of sense. At some point, 9 gives us a good number of people for a quorum. It gives us a good number of people who somebody can't make a meeting now and then. But when you start getting up at 11, 12 people, it gets, I think, a little excessive, personally.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm fine moving forward with 9 on this group. I mean, I think also there might be folks that can't make every meeting, and so I think we have to take that into consideration as well. But I was actually expecting, since we were going to have an interview tonight, we're supposed to have an interview tonight, I thought we'd be voting on this next week. But if we wanted to go ahead and vote a group in tonight, I'm fine with doing that.
Okay, Josh?
Yeah, I think this is one of the most important things our town is going to be looking at, and we really had some incredible candidates, and I don't know how I would say no to any of them. Some of them are maybe overly qualified, and some of them have, but everyone's bringing a different viewpoint. So but 9 does seem like for something so important, seems like a good number to me, because I'd rather hear more voices than less. But we don't need more, because then if you get bigger than the Supreme Court, I think you go too big. So,
Okay.
That's your benchmark?
It's not at this level. Did you want to make a comment, Dan?
I mean, I agree with everyone as well. Personally, I did think that we were gonna wait until our next meeting to vote.
Mm-hmm.
I do know we're also under a pretty short time crunch here, but if Mr. Locke does show up tonight, I still think we should proceed with the interview. So I personally would prefer to vote and wait until our next meeting.
Okay, all right. And, as I've done a lot of groups over the days, and I always found that, having eight people is perfect. Sometimes you end up with only 5 or 6 people showing up, but, and so 9 isn't that far off. So I would feel, I could agree with you folks that I think it's better to get these folks, getting information. There's a lot of other towns that have already moved forward on this. We're sort of behind the ball, which is not usual for us. So that's how I'm feeling. Yes, Mark.
I'd like to suggest that, to keep this from getting out of hand perhaps, maybe we can each submit to Mike just a prioritized list 1 through 11 or however many there are, and if we all do that, then we can take a look at who's got the least, added up the least number, because it may be obvious just when it shows up in the packet next time that, these are the 9 people by consensus or wherever it is.
Well, we only interviewed 9.
Oh, we only interviewed 9?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it is 9.
So Locke would be 10, and
Okay.
if I would say we don't want an even number. So, I mean, if I'm okay with waiting until the next meeting if we want, but I still think it would be 9. We've interviewed 9. So.
All right. Well, I can't imagine, even if we had 10, I can't imagine there'd be an issue where it'd be a 5-5 tie. If there was such a tie, then obviously there should be some renegotiation. I stand ready. If someone made a motion, I would act, I think we could vote on them tonight, but I'd be more than glad to put it off till the next meeting.
Mike, was the last thing from Dr. Locke, was that the email you forwarded us?
Correct. That was the first one that initiated, and then I had followed up with him about this interview date. But after that follow-up, I didn't hear back.
Okay. He seemed very eager. I'm surprised.
And he was the gentleman that came in the summer and gave us a resident comment about the need to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lynn, did you have any comment about the timing? Would it make a difference if we waited 2 weeks? I mean, do you think it would be?
No, I mean, it's a self-imposed timeline. So if we don't make the annual town meeting, it's hard to say if there'll even be a recommendation for annual town meeting. We're just assuming there would be. So it's really up to the group to get to work and decide. And if you wait 1 more week, it's just.
The problem is if we wait 1 more week, we get 1 more meeting, you gotta wait 2 more meetings, because that means we wouldn't interview Mr. Locke until the next meeting, and then, or although maybe we could interview him and then still vote, but by bylaws, we have to wait after we interview somebody before we could appoint them.
So full disclosure, though, there were quite a few people we spoke with at the Fall Festival who were interested in this. One person did apply. Mike has reached out to them, but they have not followed back up with any supporting information or confirming availability for a meeting. So it's possible the longer you wait, more people will apply. We didn't put a strict application deadline on this.
I know we have an attorney here for us. I assume it's for us. Is the next action we'd be taking the municipal light plant? Is that the first, what we would do at the annual town meeting theoretically?
It could be. It could be. The group could decide that the town shouldn't do anything other than try to lure another company in here. Like GoNetSpeed is one of those where you would not need to set up an MLP.
Okay.
Depends on the structure.
So depending on what the goal is or what the recommendation is, town meeting may not come into it at all?
Right.
It may just be through your office even. Okay.
Yep.
And so we're looking at about, 6 months for this group to put something together. So we don't want to delay very long, because otherwise we'd have to wait till the next town meeting after that, so. All right. So we will move on to the next item. Actually, we're going to skip over because there's a hearing at 7:30, and the presentation from Professor O'Neill will probably take a little longer. So let's move up to a little further here, which select board comments. I don't know if there's any members of the board who'd like to make comment. Josh and Mark.
I'm sure I won't be the only one to say this, but I just want to thank the organizers of the Fall Fest and Pride Fest. They were Fall Festival, fantastic weekends, really wonderful events, and just shows what our community can do when it brings together. I thought they were really wonderful, and I just want to thank everyone for their time in doing that. And I wasn't at Pride Fest very long, but and it was just but I spent too much time at Fall Festival maybe, but it was really great. So thank you. Last week was a busy week for the town, and I just want to mention 2 things. The water main break in Springfield, I know Len will cover this a bit, and there was some confusing messaging, and I think MEMA, the Mass Emergency Management Authority, maybe confused things with their messaging. But I thought that it was a good example of why people should talk to people in the town. I know I got messages and I tried to give the information I could, but Longmeadow did a great job sending out emergency messaging, I think, and I think it was a great example of why you should wait for facts and not just pass around rumors. I know there was all sorts of things going around via text or by internet or whatever, but you should you don't want to make people panic. It's good to be cautious, but I just hope we wait for the facts instead of spreading rumors. On a very similar note, I was disappointed by the discourse around the Bay Path possibly housing immigrant families. I don't know the internal workings of Bay Path. I'm not on the board. I'm not involved with them, but they were talking to Longmeadow. I know there was certainly questions that should be raised about if housing families in town and how the town could handle it, how the schools could handle it, and those are questions that should have been asked, but I don't think we ever got there. Bay Path stopped what they were considering after pushback, and so I don't know what happened in that 24 hours or however when the word got out, but I know that rumors were being spread, and I don't think that it was all correct, and I really wish we had gotten to a conversation rather than Bay Path feeling like they were not doing something that was welcome in town. And it was just disappointing to me that the way it went down. I don't know what would have happened at the end, but I think we can do better. And like I said, when our community comes together, we can do great things. And I don't think that was an example of it. And I hope if it comes up again, anything like that, I hope we can move more rationally in the future. And I also saw that Longmeadow was keeping this a secret. This wasn't Longmeadow's project. Longmeadow was talking to Bay Path. It wasn't Longmeadow's news to give. So that's all I had to say about that.
Okay, thank you. And Mark?
Yeah, well, first of all, say thank you, Josh, because I agree with you. There was more false information than true information, as we all know. It was spread on social media and other things, and it was really a shame. I'm just going to get to a couple of things. I attended a Scantic Valley meeting on behalf of the board, and they have very, very good news. They closed out fiscal 2023 in great shape. I think it's reflective of great management. They actually had excess revenue over expenses of $2.8 million, which leads us to, and this is in the healthcare industry, so leads us to give good prospects for the upcoming budget season, that there'll be a reasonable change in our healthcare costs. They've done things like they have a Canadian prescription program that's saving them a couple $100,000, a active reinsurance program, because with a small group like they have, all it takes is one or two, and they have 4 or 5 people who have multi-million-dollar claims, and that's part of health insurance, but they have an active reinsurance program that protects the program. They review their programs consistently. This last meeting, they stopped doing a telemedicine program when they found out nobody was using it, and it was very, very expensive. Not that it's not a good program, but when nobody using it, it's not a good use of our money. And so I thought it was great, and I think people should understand that. One of the things I did hear, and I think it applies to us, and I assume that our town treasurer knows, is that Unibank, which is a bank also that the town of Longmeadow use, has withdrawn from the Deposit Insurance Fund in Massachusetts, which has implications for our insurability of town deposits. And so I brought that along, and I'm sure that we're going to be looking at that for the town. The last thing I just want to comment on is that I got a letter from a town resident, it was interesting, who bought the Longmeadow street listing. This is the book you can buy for $35 or whatever it is that lists everybody in town. And he was comparing it to the one he had from 2 years ago. And he said, my goodness, the number of registered voters in Longmeadow went down by a couple of thousand. He said, but when he looked at it, he went to his street and he said, there are a whole bunch of people on his street missing. What's the story? And I said to him, my response was, that is published by our town clerk based on a response from the census document. And the census document, that's why we tell people, send back the census document. I think and this back and forth of emails, he said, well, isn't that going to cost us? I said, well, it's an off year and hopefully it doesn't really cost us. But if we did this at the wrong time, a reduced census in Longmeadow does cost you when it comes to state funds or federal funds or things like that. He said, well, what do I do? There are 4 houses on my street. I know people are there. I know they're living, and they're not listed in the town street listing. I said, well, tell them to return their census document. And so my plea here is for people who are watching this, please return your census document. We don't do it just because we like it. We do it because it's important to the town of Longmeadow. Here's somebody who took the time and actually read through the thing and looked at the difference and noticed that there's been a big difference. Part of it is, we have a new town clerk, and we went through things a little differently. But if you don't return the town census, you're not on the town census, and theoretically, you could not only impact your voting rights, but also impact the way the town gets reimbursement for things. So that's my plea.
Okay, thanks. If you guys do you have any? Okay, because we're going to start the hearing. I can check with you after.
If no, let's start the hearing.
Okay, so we have a hearing we're going to open. Can I have a motion to begin the hearing?
I'll move we open the dog hearing.
Okay. A second?
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor? All right, so we have all received documents, the reports from the victim, whose dog was attacked, and he was attacked, and we've also gotten a police report. And so where do we start this process, Lynn?
Attorney Steve, right? Chaplain?
Okay.
He's
meet Chaplain Costa.
Oh, yeah, just,
You can go to that one.
okay. Oh, yeah, there's a microphone there.
So I can lead into this. Given that the town hasn't had many of these types of hearings, we reached out to legal counsel and asked, and they informed us that this is actually happening quite often in many communities right now. And so they offered to attend the meeting to help guide us through this process.
Great, okay. And so I know you're going to explain it, but for the viewers, basically, we had a resident who was walking his dog, and the next thing you know, his dog was being assaulted, attacked and bitten by 2 other dogs in the neighborhood. And so that's why we're having this meeting. All right.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly right. So Massachusetts law provides that when a town receives a complaint about a dog, that a dog might be what's statutorily constituted as a nuisance or a dangerous dog, the hearing authority has to hold a hearing. So that's what we're doing tonight. Statute requires that the hearing authority investigate the complaint, so that's what you're going to do. And the statute requires that you do that by taking sworn testimony. So after I give this explanation, I'll swear the witnesses, and you'll get to question them. We'll take note of what exhibits get admitted into evidence. And then after all the testimony goes in, the hearing authority has to make a determination as to whether the dog is a dangerous dog, whether the dog is a nuisance dog, or whether the dog is neither of those things.
Okay.
And if you find that the dog is a nuisance dog, then you have to decide what remedial action you're going to order as a result. If you find that the dog is a dangerous dog, the statute actually mandates that there are 7 options you have to choose from. You can choose one of the options, you can choose multiple of the options.
Okay. And so will we close the hearing and then make that decision in open session? Or, yeah.
Correct. It will all be done in open session.
Okay, but we'll... Okay.
Step 1 is the testimony, step 2 is the finding, either nuisance, dangerous, or neither of those things. And then step 3 is assuming that there's a finding of nuisance or a finding of dangerous, what remedial action, if any, the
Okay.
hearing authority will order.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you.
So, I don't know if the board is in receipt of this nifty handout. You are. That I sent along via email. We basically passed these out to, kind of give you a little cheat sheet. So just for the record, I like to read the definition of nuisance, and I like to read the definition of dangerous. I think it's helpful here because in Long Meadow, you have a bylaw that uses the term nuisance in a way that's a little bit different from the statute. The bylaw is completely consistent with the statute, but I think it's important that we use the statutory definition, since that's where the hearing authority's obligations come from. So under the statute, a nuisance dog is a dog that, 1, by excessive barking or other disturbance is a source of annoyance to a sick person residing in the vicinity, or 2, by excessive barking causing damage or other interference, a reasonable person would find such behavior disruptive to one's quiet and peaceful enjoyment, or 3, has threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal or person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under the circumstances. In contrast, a dangerous dog is defined by the statute as a dog that either, 1, without justification, attacks a person or domestic animal, causing physical injury or death, or 2, behaves in a manner that a reasonable person would believe poses an unjustified imminent threat of physical injury or death to a person or to a domestic or owned animal. So bearing those in mind, I would just, issue one word of caution to the hearing authority. One of the findings that you have to make is that the attack was not provoked. So that's something you need to listen for as you hear the testimony. Also, if the person attacked was in some way trespassing upon the property of the person who owned the dog, that would be another exception. And there are other exceptions in the statute. I'll be listening for them as they come up, and if I feel the need, I'll instruct the hearing authority accordingly. And just a couple of words of caution for the witnesses. Because this is sworn testimony and this is an evidentiary hearing, testimony really needs to be limited to what people saw with their own 2 eyes, heard with their own 2 ears, and this is all with respect to the alleged incident that took place on July 28th. So, the hearing authority is charged with hearing testimony about that date. What did the witnesses in front of us see? What did they hear? And from that information, and the police report, whatever exhibits we have, from that information, the hearing authority will conclude whether the dog is a nuisance, dangerous, or neither. There sort of is the temptation. Obviously, this is an emotional subject. We're dealing with our families, we're dealing with animals, we're dealing with our neighborhoods and our neighbors. So, there is the temptation to go afield of the narrow question of, what happened on this date. But I would just, caution everyone that, at the end of the day, the statute tells us what the hearing authority needs to decide. And, that's based on the firsthand knowledge and the documents that are going to be entered into evidence. And of course, if you have any questions for me at any time, that's why I'm here.
All right. So,
I was going to make a motion to open the hearing.
I thought we already did.
Need a formal motion to open a hearing and a vote.
Okay.
Do we have one?
Yeah, we did.
I believe there was a motion.
I
Oh,
think we
okay.
did,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
It's okay.
That's okay.
Good double check, good double check.
Apologies.
Okay, so do you want to call your first witness?
I think it's up to us.
Or-
It's up to you.
or it's up to
I think
us.
is the dog warden, is our
Oh,
dog?
okay,
I'd
so-
like to hear from the report from the dog warden. Our dog control officer, our animal control officer.
We have our animal control officer. Please, want to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself?
These
Just your
microphones are
name.
for cable TV to hear. They're not for the room.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll swear the animal control officer before she testifies. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now in hearing?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Marty Cameronti. I'm the dog officer in Long Meadow. I've been dog officer here for 18 years, and I've only had 2 other hearings like this in 18 years. And we didn't go through everything that you're saying. Basically, what we did was looked at what happened, and the select board at the time, each time, I have dog bites quite frequently. So we try to come to a way that maybe we can solve it for both families. Obviously, the person that was walking by, it's their pet, but also the person whose dog ran out the door, it was their pet. So I was here more for recommendations of ways that we could keep this dog not able to go out and do this in the future, but I'm not looking really to recommend to make these people give up their dog. So as far as you said, I didn't witness anything. I get a call from dispatch late at night, and they said that there had been a dog bite, and the guy walking by, so this is all hearsay, this was all said to me. The guy that was walking by had his dog, and then a dog came running out that was reportedly the Templeton's dog, and
Sorry to interrupt, so who was saying this to you?
dispatch called to say there was a bite.
Okay.
And so then upon calling the parties involved, Mr. Strange, who was the person walking his dog, the Templetons were on their way home from a vacation. They had had a dog sitter at their house. So I was trying to get all the details. And so reportedly to me, the Templeton's dog ran past the dog sitter, out the front door, bit the walker's dog, and Mr. Strange, who was the walker, again reportedly tried to break it up and got bit on his hand. Since then, under Mass State law, I quarantined the dog Patches that reportedly bit the Mr. Strange's dog, and so it underwent the 10-day legal quarantine. Then the Templetons and I discussed ways that we could stop this from ever happening again. And so my feeling, and I don't know, do you even want me to get into that?
I think that's
right now?
appropriate.
Okay, so I've talked to the Templetons, and I've gone out there. She has since gotten her dog neutered, but I realize that doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but she has been trying to make steps. I recommended, and I recommend her to get a second door. So you have a door to walk out of your house, but a second door. So if your dog tries to go past you, there's like a glass or screen door that stop it. And then beyond that, a double safety of having a contractor come out and put in front of their porch a latched wood door, so that the dog can't make it past. So it has like a double safety that the dog can't go bounding out the door. I also recommended, she does have an electric fence, but because I do pick up dogs quite frequently that get out of their electric fences, I recommend that the backyard be fenced in some way that the dog can't leave the property. She has stated that her dog has done well with all these other dogs in the neighborhood and people in the neighborhood, but for some reason that dog, and it is my experience that dogs, like people, sometimes randomly dislike one dog, 2 dogs. We just don't know which dog it will be. It could get along with a bunch of dogs and then not. So the owner of the dog that got bit, he should be able to feel safe walking by. So it's my recommendation that they not have their dog off leash without a muzzle, like walking around, and because it has bit, but that they would be able to keep their dog, and that they would just put restraints in that the dog can't get loose and go after someone.
Just for clarification, the recommendations when the dog is off premises, that it be muzzled?
Well, yes, I'm thinking if they're walking it off the premises, because we don't know, because this happened. But I don't think they've had no trouble reportedly again with other dogs, other people, but they had this incident. So I'm trying to figure out a way to keep this from happening again, but also keep them to be able to keep their family pet. And so that's my contribution. And that's what we did in the last couple cases. The town ordered a certain fence, a certain thing to try to keep, because the neighbors were all concerned.
Now, the board hasn't received any diagrams or photos of the precautions that you have just described to us. And so it's going to be hard for us to judge if the dogs could jump over this gate on the front porch and so forth. So you don't have any diagrams or anything to share?
No, well, they have not done it yet. So I would inspect it. They haven't, she hasn't, so I'd like you to talk to the Templetons. Their dogs haven't jumped. So I'm not saying for it to be the door wide open left for the dog to, I'm saying that just to be a double stop, that if the dog was to go.
I agree, yeah. And so it's been a couple of weeks, and to your knowledge, that hasn't been put in place?
No, she did try to put a gate in front of the porch, but it's not secure enough in my opinion. I went out on Saturday and saw it, and I can push it over. So I'm looking for more of something somebody could build and latch. Across. I don't know if can you picture what I mean? Like there's a porch that comes down, and then I'm thinking a gate, just a gate across the stairway that's a secure latch, so that if it made it out the door, it's got another stopping point.
All right. Any questions from any other members of the board at this point? Yes. Dan.
At the time of the bite, were the dogs up to date on their shots, and was the dog registered at that time?
They're registered now.
But at the time?
At the time, they were up to date with the shots, but they were not licensed.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So for folks in the audience, every year, folks have to renew dog licenses, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And it's their responsibility. The town do we do it at one day? We send out a notice with the taxes,
Goes
right?
with the census. It goes with the census.
And the census
Yeah.
to renew, reminding people to renew their dogs. Okay. So people were informed. Vinny? Unless you have more questions. Yeah.
Do the Templetons own the home, or are they renting?
You'd have to ask the Templetons.
You mentioned in your report that you went over the conditions of the quarantine. But then what are the conditions of the quarantine?
So in Massachusetts, an animal is only contagious with rabies in the last 10 days of its life. So Massachusetts requires that if there's been a bite, so even if something's up to date on rabies shots, it's not 100%, even though it's rare that it would give you rabies. But if something has bit, if your family pet has bit you, if wildlife has bit you, if we can quarantine the animal for 10 days and the animal is alive and well after 10 days, you have zero risk of getting rabies. The problem is when you have a wild animal or a stray cat or something that bites a child and then takes off, we have to assume it rabid because rabies is fatal. And so by the time someone knows they have it, there is no cure. So Massachusetts has strong rabies laws that if there's been a bite and we have the animal, we ask the people to quarantine it. It cannot go outside off leash. It can't it has to be very contained. We want that animal alive and well to make sure that there's zero rabies risk after 10 days. And if the animal was to die in that 10 days, believe it or not, that happened to me once, wasn't rabies, it's just that the animal died of a fluke, like a heart attack or something under quarantine, then you would have to test the brain. So that's the conditions, because that's the only way to test an animal for rabies is by decapitating it and testing the brain.
And to your knowledge, as a result of these bites, did anybody have to go through a rabies vaccine, like Mr. Strange or his dog?
He did not have to. You can ask Mr. Strange if he got rabies, but he does. If we have the animal for quarantine, there's no necessity for shots.
Okay, right. And for those in the viewing audience, we always, if people get shots to prevent rabies, they do it because it's a fatal disease.
Right.
If you get rabies, you die every
Yes.
time.
I had a smart little girl that somehow learned about it in her school, and she was on her way home from school. Well, this part wasn't smart. She picked the stray cat up, but when it bit her and it broke skin, she knew to hang on to the cat, brought it home, and we quarantined it in her family's garage for 10 days. So the little girl did not have to get shots because we had the stray cat.
Yeah, that's good.
But
Right.
if we didn't, we would have required rabies shots.
Yeah.
And just one more question.
Yes.
In your report as well, you mentioned that you found the Templetons to be very remorseful and cooperative. Do you recollect anything that they specifically said that gave you that impression?
Yes, Mrs. Templeton, I've talked to her quite a bit. She's the, what can I do? What can I do to make this so that I can keep my dog, so that I can, I haven't gotten it. She mentioned the bill for the guy, for Mr. Strange. She had me come out and look at her fence this weekend, and when I told her I didn't think it was strong enough, we talked about what she could do that would be better. So she has not been antagonistic towards my suggestions.
Okay. I don't believe we have any more questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
And you're going to talk to both the other parties?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it might be helpful if we also find out who else is here, because right before we continue on with their questionings, is it possible for people to maybe announce who they are, so we know?
We're the Templetons.
Templetons,
Okay.
okay, and then
Mark Strange.
your child.
Sophia Strange, my legal guardian.
And you all are?
Yeah.
Are you here for the?
Amanda and John Wilsey.
Oh, sorry.
Amanda and John Wilsey, we sent you guys a letter as well on
The
August
second letter.
6th.
Okay,
I know
thank
it's not
you.
part of that particular date, but we are also willing to speak to this overall.
Okay, so for folks in the viewing audience, they may not have been able to hear you, but we have the Templetons here. Mr. Strange was the victim, and then the Wilds?
Wilsey.
Right, Wilson.
And our dog also.
And they had submitted a letter, which is also part of our.
Now, not to me. I don't have a letter from anyone else.
Oh,
It's on the agenda.
It's a previous.
It's not attached to
It was
this
in
agenda.
it was in previous correspondence.
It was not attached to any
yeah.
agenda, but it was
Okay.
sent on August 6th to Mr.
All right.
Machuza.
So maybe we should put that in, attach it to our agenda or in some way, so that if people want to see that, they could, because it's public. In a way, it's public.
Well, we can turn it into evidence.
Right, I think at some point we should list out for the record, what documents are before the board in terms of evidence,
Great.
in terms of what the name of the document is, the date on the document to identify it. We could do that now if you
I'll
like.
give you that, that sounds like your work.
Or we could do that at the end. If you're wondering which witness to call next, I might suggest Mr. Strange, just in
Okay.
terms of the narrative that might make it the easiest to follow, both for the board and for the folks
And
on
we'll follow
TV.
anything else. Okay.
Do you want me to stay here or go sit back and?
Well, you can sit back.
I just have a question related to Martin Lee. Did we ask the police officer Martin to come tonight?
I believe Chief Stocks is in attendance.
Oh, he's on there, okay.
Yeah, he
All right.
was coming on Zoom.
I don't know if he has any firsthand knowledge, but I know that the first responder was a police officer, so it might be worth to get it on the record.
So would it be all right to move to that next have the police department?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
I apologize for not being there in person. I'm actually at a police chief's conference in Norwood, Massachusetts. So, but I definitely wanted to zoom in case I could assist in any way. I know Marty Lee. I have full faith in her testimony thus far, and I usually defer to her any animal complaints. I think she's done a nice job explaining this situation as well as the rabies issues. But at this point, I'm here for any questions that I can assist with.
Did you have a question on this report?
No, I don't know if Officer Martin was the one to respond. I don't know if you had anything to add to the narrative of, or if the police department has had any contact with the Templetons after to discuss the incident or how to remediate.
No, Mr. Bean, actually, typically what we do is in a case like this, Officer Martin responded to the initial complaint. We had the, as we know, the dog attack. And then what we normally do is standard protocol is we will forward the complaint and or report to Marty Lee. In this case, Marty Lee follows up with both parties, which she did. She added an addendum to the initial narrative. So at this point, we have had nothing in addition to the complaint that's at your desk right now.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
My law school brain just kicked in and said we need somebody to enter this part of the record in, but it's
Okay.
Thank you, Chief Stokes.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. All right.
All right. Could
Mr.
we call Mr. Strange to the stand?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good evening.
Just going to swear you in before we get going. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now in hearing?
I do.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I think that you guys have the narrative that we put forward. I just wanted to respond to a couple things that the dog officer had mentioned. But first and foremost, we're very friendly with Robbie and Hillary, and we don't want them to see them lose their dogs. We would never want that. And since the incident, we've certainly seen an improvement in the interactions that we would experience walking the dogs past the home. We don't hear them as much, we don't see them as much, so I don't know what they did, but it's certainly been an improvement. In terms of them getting along with other dogs, that's just not true. That's the one thing that I would dispute. This was the third time that these dogs have attacked my dog. And it's just because we have so much affection for Robbie and Hillary that we never did anything about it. This one was the worst. Definitely, there was, as you saw, my dog was bleeding, I was bleeding. But they've attacked two other dogs, the Wilsies. They've attacked the Wilsies dogs twice. They've attacked other neighbors twice, and another neighbor that who didn't really want to participate. So this is the 8th such attack, and at some point, enough is enough. Ultimately, I want me and my family to be safe walking past their home. That's all we want. To me, this has got to be the final warning. If this happens again, the dogs have to be removed from the house. That would be my request of the board, ultimately. So I don't know if you guys wanted me to go through exactly what happened for the record, or I'll take questions, or I don't know how you guys want to do it.
Does he need to give sworn testimony to the facts of the day?
We could do it that way, or we could have Mr. Strange step back and we could hear from the dog owners, because if the testimony is not in dispute, it might save us all some time and angst. Particularly where, it's not, we're not hearing a request that the dog be put down, we're hearing a much more muted request of the board, so that might be a good way to handle it.
If we could take it as written, if you think that's enough for the record, then I think that would be helpful to us.
I think that's what he's talking about, though, Josh.
No, that's what I mean.
If we could just, I don't have it in front of me, but if you can just identify the date of the letter. I did see it, but I just don't have it in front of me.
This is July 31st, 2023 letter from Mark Strange.
Okay, so Mr. Strange, you adopt that, your written letter as your testimony?
I do.
Okay, that's sufficient. And if we have any additional questions based on the testimony from the neighbors, we can certainly recall Mr. Strange to clarify at that point.
Did, any other questions from Mr. Strange when he's still up here?
Have you recovered well?
I still have a bruise,
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, it's lingering.
But did you do any rabies shots or anything like that?
I didn't, so Robbie texted us to say that they had their shots. I went to the ER at Mercy, they gave me a horse pill antibiotic, and that was pretty much it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the last thing is I would request, and we've already talked about this, is they cover our medical bills. We had to go, my dog had to go to the vet twice. Once to get, a shot, an antibiotic. The antibiotic wasn't strong enough, so we had to go back and get a stronger antibiotic. We have those bills. We had to get like a cone of shame. We actually got 3 of them because we couldn't figure out what size he was. Obviously, we wouldn't ding them for all 3 of them. And then just waiting for our bill from Mercy Medical Center.
I will caution the board that the board doesn't have jurisdiction to order that under the statute, but I would say to the neighbors, that would be the right thing to do. So I would, recommend it.
Okay, then why don't you have a seat and we'll move up to the next hearing.
Okay. Why don't we hear from the dog owners?
Hello, everyone.
How you doing?
Sorry we all have to be here on our account.
We're just going to swear you first.
Yeah.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now in hearing?
I do.
Okay, and then for the record, could you just each state your name?
My name is Robert Templeton.
Hillary Templeton.
Okay. So, we've gotten these letters, and I'm sure you've seen them, right? The letters that were sent to the town?
I haven't seen the physical letter, but I think we're familiar with all the information contained therein through Mark and the dog officer.
Okay. So, do you have, I guess, what would be your response to the charges?
Yeah, we feel horrible about the situation. Something in between, like I think what the dog officer meant and what Mark said is really the truth. Our dogs are very friendly with many dogs. There have been a couple incidents on the street with dogs walking by. I think they're protective. Patches in particular was a COVID dog. Sonny was a little bit of a COVID dog, but Patches was born right in the heart of the pandemic and could not go to the dog park weekly as we did with Sonny to get her a little more familiar with other dogs. I don't know if that has a little bit part of it, but again, I'd say 8 out of 10 dogs. I take him on walks at Turner. I used to anyway, and sees a lot of dogs. Never had any problems. It's mostly just been at the house with dogs walking by the front of the house. I think mostly it's male dogs. The little one that these folks own, definitely Sonny doesn't like that dog. And so, each time one of these incidents happened, we took measures. One time they escaped out the side. We put a fence on that side. We have a garden on the other side. Patches figured out how to go around that. There's an area there where the fence wasn't complete, so we added a thing on that side. We did many things each time any incident happened. None of them were as dramatic as this one, but we always took a measure and did something about it. But there were certain failures in the things that we implemented. In this occasion, our mother-in-law, who's almost 80, was house sitting while we were on vacation, and a neighbor came by and actually, unbeknownst to us, asked her to babysit their child while they went to the movies. And the 2 of them were standing in the door, passing the kid back to them after they'd returned from the movies. And that's when Patches darted out and attacked. So, we've been trying to work with the dog officer to implement measures to make it even more secure. And I think, at this point, we've worked out the kinks. I think we did put up a gate in the interim. We have talked to a couple contractors about putting in both a storm door, which we actually bought this weekend and is sitting in the garage, and we talked to another contractor about putting a gate at the bottom of the stairs. In the interim, we put in like a baby gate, and that was the gate that's just there now. It was pretty secure. A lot of it's just, it has 2 sides, and then there's a middle, so the dog can't really go around people. We're being much more careful. We've talked to the kids a lot about, the danger of them escaping, so trying to just be more, good about, you know, making sure that the doors are closed. So that was the temporary fix, and we've got plans to implement 2 more secure measures.
Did you have
And we had
anything
him
to add?
neutered.
Yeah, and the neutering, yeah. And that takes about 5-6 weeks for the hormones to come into effect to hopefully make the dog a little calmer. Sunny's a female, but Patches is a male, so.
Yeah, so we have no photos of the dogs or anything, and so can you give us the ages of the dogs, size of the dogs?
Yeah, Sunny is a female, and they're both about 45 pounds.
Okay.
And they're Australian Shepherd mixed breeds that we adopted, that we rescued. Sunny has just turned 5 in March, and Patches just turned 2 in March. So they're 2.5 and 5.5.
Okay, 2.5, okay. And so one weighs 40 pounds, 45 pounds?
No, actually, Patch just weighed in at 50 pounds when he was neutered.
Okay.
Yeah. he
50
gained-
at the most
he's gained
recent
a couple
point.
pounds.
So Patches
But that's
is
their
50
full size.
50
yeah.
pounds. And the
That's
other
his full
dog
size.
is how much?
Sunny's 45, 50?
Yeah, she's probably in between there, 45 and 50, somewhere in between.
Okay, all right, so medium size. I
Yeah,
guess,
medium,
is
that's
what I
correct.
Consider that. All right, yes.
So, do you have the yellow house?
Yes.
So which door did, and if anyone else wants to pull this up on the computer, this is the house.
The door near the garage.
Okay.
The front door is not used very much.
It's a very old home, and the front door has a latch that's very hard to open, so the kids are unable to open that
Yeah,
door. So
we open that door, you know.
it's not a door that
once in a blue
we're
moon.
concerned with the dog getting out of, but the other one's
We
the
go
one
in
that
and
we
out.
go in and out of.
Every day, the door near the garage is an entrance into the kitchen.
And so you have, there's a full porch there? Is
Yeah.
there like a,
Yeah, so you see the white fence
Yeah.
that's on the porch? So, and then there's 2 wooden railings that go down the stairs, and at the bottom of those is where it's been recommended that we put in, so that'd be the 3rd blockade in the arrangement.
So just hold on, to make it easier, Mike, can you allow him to share his screen?
I'm not on Zoom.
You're not on Zoom?
If you just,
Oh,
Or if Mike can just probably just
yeah,
pull it up.
it's just Zillow, 64 Franklin Road.
we can pull it up, just if we're gonna look, we're talking about the house.
Or just Google Maps, anything.
Just do Google Maps, Mike. Easier.
So while he's pulling that up, could you just repeat the measures that you're planning on implementing? So you mentioned a storm door
Yep.
and,
So the storm door will go just outside of the door now, which is the door that the dog was able to get through when it was open. So now when that door is open, there'll be another door. And then at the bottom of the stairs, there'll be a gate.
You can zoom in, Mike.
So it'll be really hard to get in the house, but it'll be worth it.
and you mentioned children in the home.
That's correct, we have 3
We have 3.
daughters,
How old?
ages 13, 8, and 6.
That's all we got?
I think he's trying to share.
All right, oh, all right.
That was it?
All right. And, are you through?
I guess I'm curious why we would be putting the gate at the bottom of the stairs and not on the porch.
The top?
Yeah.
Top of the stairs, both?
Both?
The storm door
Well, so
would be
the
the
storm
top.
door would be at the top, and then we could do the gate
It's a
at
very
that top.
narrow landing. It's like, the storm door would hit probably the
Oh, okay.
gate. I mean, you'd probably have
Right.
like a doormats there, and then
Yeah, it's
that's
about a doormat
it.
size, there's a tiny little porch.
And from this photo, we can't tell, but in the
Yeah.
backyard,
So now there's side fences on both sides, and then electric
But there's no
fence in the
back fence. We have
So it's-
electric fence
okay,
on
so
the
it's
back,
not
and that's
a-
where it's been recommended
yeah.
that we add a fence in the back as well. I forgot to
all
mention
right,
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to me, we got to kid-proof this, we got to grandparent-proof it, whatever. And that's as many full fail-proofs as you can get. Because I could see, I guess if there's another door in the middle, but I could see a dog who's riled up jumping over a fence at the bottom of the steps or a gate. But if you have a door there,
But the
that
door,
would
right.
cut that off.
Yeah.
But also that gate needs to have a spring on it to
To
automatically shut
self-close.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it will, yeah.
Because I love dogs. I would never want to tell people you got to get rid of your dogs or worse. But if it happens again, that's what we'll tell you.
I understand, yeah.
So, yeah, an electric. I see my father-in-law's dog runs through an electric fence. She gets riled up, and that's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
But I don't want, and you don't want to have a way for these dogs to get out.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
So the more pinch points you can get, the better. It might be a pain, but
Agreed,
it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the main thing I think is that with the storm door, which will be glass, these glass from top to bottom, you'll be able to open the door. So it's someone rings the bell, they open the door, the dog sees a dog behind and darts through. You'll open the door, someone rings the bell, you open the door, you see the person without having to open that glass barrier, you know? So I think that's the key moment when the dogs have slipped by.
Oh, and we were going to put a sign by the doorbell, "Don't let the dog out." That was
Another
another
suggestion.
addition. We were.
Yes, Mark Long.
Yeah, I guess the thing that, I guess, concerns me is that the dog was not licensed at the time of the incident.
It had been previously licensed. We had lapsed on renewing the license.
Okay, so it had previously
Yes,
been-
absolutely. Yes, for several years.
Both these dogs?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And the fact that you weren't home, I mean, you know, we can't expect you, the responsible adults in the family, be home every hour of every day when the animals are there. And so I think Josh is correct that we've got to come up with systems that don't depend on you or depend on who's there. I mean,
Yeah.
that to me is the biggest issue here is, pardon me, but foolproof systems, and frankly, very few foolproof systems are truly 100%, but we got to get better than we are.
Yes, Dan.
Thanks. So my other question earlier, do you own the home? Because I was doing some research, and it could be outdated, but it looks like the Leonards own the home.
That's correct.
Right.
That's our brother-in-law.
Okay.
That's my brother-in-law.
Sister.
So my follow-up question was going to be, obviously you know the owners, but of the home, but I was just curious because I wasn't sure if the landlord or the owner was open to the changes that you're making to the house. So I
Yes.
just
Yeah.
wanted to be clear because if you know
Mhm.
you don't know the landlord very well and
Right,
they don't
right.
want you to make those changes, I just want to make sure that
Yeah, we're-
something is going to happen.
Yeah, we're lucky. It's my
Yep,
sister,
we
her
do.
brother. They're
No, they're fine.
very open to us doing whatever we need to do.
And then the other question I had, so the woman, I'm already forgetting her name, who spoke earlier.
Marty,
So so she came over, she pushed over the fence, or the gate rather, so you said, could you just explain kind of what you're doing now, what measures you're
Sure,
taking?
yeah. So it's an older home and the door size is unique. So it's a 70 by 80 and it was very hard to find a storm door. Anderson used to make one and I thought I was going to be able to get that, and then Home Depot got back to me that they no longer make that size. So it took time to find a storm door that would fit, but we did just purchase one. So that's why it's not up yet, but it's in the garage ready to go. It just took a minute to find the right size, being the odd measurements.
And I guess the other, more of a comment that I would say, I think everyone on the board, you know, shares the same thing. Like the last thing that we want to do is come in front of folks over a dog hearing, of course. But I have a dog as well, a COVID dog. I would just recommend training as well. I'm not sure if you've looked into that, but we
Yeah.
literally brought someone to our house because, you know, he's just full of energy and
Yeah.
he's very jumpy, and that has helped. So.
Yeah, we did training with the
We
first
did
dog.
training with Sunny.
And then, we didn't do it with Patches because it was not a lot of stuff like that was
Yeah.
happening. But it's a good recommendation. We'll look into some training, sure. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
I just want a question about the storm door. So, how heavy is this door? Is it a screen door? Is it glass
It's
door?
glass. Well, it has a retractable, but we'll just leave it glass.
Yeah,
So
it'd be
it's glass. I think it's called the mid view. It has like this much aluminum, and then the rest is glass.
Okay, all right, thanks. Joshua?
Yeah, I just had a question for Attorney Chaplin. Are there any limits on what we can require? And is there any continuing jurisdiction, like we come back in 6 months so we can check on whether this has all been done?
So two really good questions. If you find that the dog is a nuisance, there really isn't a limit on what you can do. If you find that the dog is dangerous, then the statute sets forth these 7 options. So one of which has already been done, to alter the dog. But yes, you would be limited. Continuing jurisdiction, it's not explicitly provided for in the statute, but I've had that occur by agreement as recently as last week. It wasn't last week, it was the week before, where the animal control officer in that case was recommending that an animal behavioralist be utilized with, and the owners were represented by counsel whom I had an ongoing relationship with, and the order by agreement was that council would agree on who the behavioralist would be, and that a report would be drawn up and it would be resubmitted and the order would be revisited. I personally don't see any prohibition or any reason you can't do that, but I would recommend, certainly as a best practice, that we would want the owners of the dog to agree to that, so that there wouldn't be a challenge to it after the fact. Might be a good compromise in lieu of something more severe to kind of agree to something lesser severe, but with a date to revisit. Might be in everybody's mutual best interest to do it that way.
All right.
Tom?
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just trying to get some clarification, because you have 2 dogs, but the incident was with the younger dog?
Correct.
Is that at Patches?
Yes.
And I guess, we heard that there'd been prior incidents with other neighbors, and I guess the question is, is it that same dog, or is it the other dog that those incidents were? In other words, are we talking about 1 dog or 2 dogs here is what I'm trying to get to.
So with the Wilsies, it was the other dog. When she, how long ago was it?
It was in July of 2021.
2021.
Across the street from their house.
Yeah.
And
So,
our dog was,
21.
and I think you were on a second incident earlier that year. I don't have the exact date, because again, we're friendly as well, and don't want to be here either, right? But it was Sunny both of those times. It wasn't on Patches. They just got Patches.
Did we have Patch already?
You just got Patches when Bella was attacked.
I don't know if we can allow this conversation
I think
to
you have to have
happen
them
if
call
it's not sworn in, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious about whether you're talking about 1 dog or 2 dogs. It sounds like this incident is 1 dog. There may be other unrelated incidents that aren't related to tonight's hearing about a second dog.
I think that's right. Mr. Chair, if I may, I have the police report, the follow-up narrative, and then Mr. Strange's letter in succession. What I'd like to do, for purposes of the record, to make it clear, I'd like to have the witnesses review those 3
Yeah.
reports and let us know on the record if there's any aspect of them that they don't agree with, just so we can understand,
Okay.
sort of what's agreed and what's not agreed.
Okay. And Mark, are you clear then? So Patches has been, was the first.
Right, this is
attacking.
but this is a dog is a nuisance hearing about Patches only, because that's the complaint that we can deal with. I mean, the fact that there are other incidents at other times with another dog is ancillary, I guess, if probably not.
Both dogs came out.
Yeah, both dogs came out.
Both dogs ran out. Only 1 bit, and Mark's emails or letter says, I believe. But they were both, a nuisance can be threatening to bite, so I think we're still all within the purview.
Okay, thank you.
Right. And yeah, it would be hard to know if 1 dog bites you, if the other dog's going to bite you also.
Right.
Maybe. Maybe you could ask Mr. Strange, I'm not sure. It's just that I never got any letter from the other family, so I have no complaints against Sunny whatsoever. And in talking to Mr. Strange on the phone, he had told me he had no problems with Sunny, only Patches. So this is all new information to me tonight. So you might want to ask Mr. Strange, as far as the incident, if Sunny was just running out the door after another dog that was bounding out the door, because that's a whole different matter. A dog running, loose out the door. So I guess I want clarification on the incident that night, whether Sonny was, when I talked to Mr. Strange, he didn't seem to be bothered with Sonny. That's what I just, so I'm a little bit, there's like confusion in this
We
right now.
can, yeah, we can clarify that. That's a, I think that's a good suggestion. Did you folks have a chance to look over the police report, the ancillary narrative and the letter?
Yeah, the only mistake is that Claire is Hillary's mother, not mine, but other than that, seems to...
Okay, then you don't
I don't know if that's important or not. I don't think so.
Okay.
I couldn't focus on it, there's too much going on. Be able to fully read
In
it.
essence, the narrative
Yes.
is not in dispute?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Just wanted to, it's helpful to just have that on the record. Okay. I
Okay.
wouldn't have any more questions for
So-
the witnesses, but I think it is a good suggestion to recall Mr. Strange and clarify if we're talking about only Patches or Patches and Sonny.
Okay, and and I guess the only question would be, in terms of your experience as owners of Patches, and you would say that Patches has chased other dogs and tried to give them a hard time?
No, not for the most part. From our house, he's ran out, on this occasion, and has Patches run out before?
Well, so the first time with Bentley, I believe Patches was outside already with
Oh,
us,
yeah, that
right?
was
And it was
Patch,
like, he
yeah.
was a little puppy, and we introduced them.
They were both on their leashes, and
And like, so with Sunny, they smelled each other and everything was fine, and then Patches came in and then smelled and then kind of turned on him. It was a while
First
ago. I
time.
have the first time they met. Was that the first incident?
Can you address us, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened
It was a long time
because it was a
ago.
while ago. But I believe it was when the first incident was, we were outside already with the dogs, and they were all on leash. I think we had just come back from a walk, and they were walking by with their new puppy, so we were introducing them.
Yeah.
I believe Sunny smelled and everything was fine, and then Patches smelled and like sniffed for a minute, and then got aggressive.
Yeah.
So that was the first incident, and then we like quickly, Katie pulled Bentley and I pulled Patches, or you did. I don't remember who had him. So that's the first incident.
Okay, yes.
What kind of restraints do you have on the dogs while you are walking them?
I like the
Harness and leash.
harness.
And, Marty Lee, do you think that is sufficient to restrain a dog? Or do you have a recommendation?
Oh, yes, I think that hasn't been the problem. Have your dogs gotten away from you?
Not while
I
we're
don't have, this is
walking them.
this is the first complaint that's come before me. So, because this dog just bit someone, I would say that, yes, I would recommend if they're going to walk it in the neighborhood, the dog should be muzzled, because we don't know.
Right.
We don't know. But I'm not concerned with the harness and leash. And then also, as far as that second gate, you had asked, I don't think the dog should be left out on the porch or anywhere that second gate is meant to be its only barrier. That's just a backup in case somebody's coming in through, they shut the gate, they're opening the door, just to create a bunch of checks and balances, just to stop any unforeseen dog running out. But I'm not wanting that gate to be used as the dog laying out on the porch.
Okay, and by looking at the picture that we saw, it looks like you have, two garages are those garages attached to the house?
You'd have to enter into a back porch through the garage door, and then you have to enter through double glass doors to enter the home. So there's
Okay.
already two
Two doors
areas.
before
The
the
garage
garage.
doors would be the third area going
okay.
out the rear. of the home.
And so it would also appear that when you bring groceries and so forth in the house, they go in that door by the steps that we were looking at.
Right.
The groceries do.
Okay, that's your main door for
Yeah.
entrance, okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any more questions for the folks in front of us. I mean, I would just ask if Mark could come back up so we can get clarification on the dogs that he's concerned with. And then, at least for me, after hearing that, I think I'm ready to discuss, what we should do next.
Okay, I mean, we could do that, we could have Mark come up, but I also, I mean, we had another letter about a recent, there was someone said that, from the Wilsons, I mean, I'd like to hear from them,
I don't think we can. I think this hearing is just about what occurred on that date, with that incident.
Okay.
Well, I don't think so. I mean, even Mark's email says every time they walk by, they bark aggressively. Why don't we ask our dog?
Yeah, I think step one, let's clarify what dog the hearing is about, if it's both dogs. But yeah, I think you can hear testimony regarding prior incidents, particularly where you have jurisdiction to find that the dog's a nuisance. So that could be an ongoing course of conduct.
This is character testimony.
Right.
I don't know that I would say it's character testimony.
So-
But I would say modus operandi if we're looking for a hearsay exception.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, I appreciate, I mean, it's, as you said, there may have been other folks who have had their dogs chased after by Patches, at least, and we had at least one family that would come forward, so I'd really like to hear them. I don't know.
Call the Wilsies.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, how about we call Mark first, get a clarification, you can call them.
Okay.
Dangerous incident.
Right, yeah.
Think you know what the question is?
Forgot the question.
Right.
Just which dog?
So,
Dogs come out?
so both dogs came out. Patches attacked, Sonny did not. I mean, when you're getting attacked by a dog, everything's really chaotic. I saw Patches with his tooth inside my dog. I pulled him off, and Sonny was also here. I just don't remember Sonny attacking. For us, we've never had a problem with Sonny. In fact, before we got Bentley and they got Patches, Sonny was the sweetest dog. She would just lay out front, and we'd go up and pet her and love her up, So from my experience, when Patches came, things kind of changed. But at least for this incident, we didn't. It's Sonny came out running, I think, following Patches, but I don't remember Sonny attacking or anything.
So your letter says that they both bark aggressively, is that?
Yes. It's, and it hasn't been since this, whatever these guys did, but every time it's like an aggressive, I'm gonna jump this fence and attack you. It's really a menacing bark. It's twice, we walk past, we walk past, and they're in front, and they're barking aggressively. We go around the side, they follow us to the side, and they're barking aggressively, both of them. Again, that hasn't been nearly as much since this incident, but it was always a concern for me. Like, if these dogs get out, there's going to be a serious issue.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Trench.
All right.
The Wilsons.
And you can both come up together. I'll just swear you in quickly. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in the matter now in hearing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, could you both state your name for the record?
Jonathan Wilsey.
Amanda Wilsey?
Okay, so, you submitted a letter to us, and did you have any comments, or just as far as that letter, did you feel the dogs, are you nervous walking down the street with your dog? I mean, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I stopped doing it. Now, Rob did take action. He came up to me afterwards, told me that dogs are going to be in the back. Our dog is getting older, so to me it was just easier to, literally, my house is all the way at the end of the street, so I usually would walk past their house, go maybe another 50 feet and turn around. So to me it was just easier to stop short. But he did stop me when I was walking by his house or whatever, and was concerned that I hadn't walked the dog, and did put the dogs in the back. Unfortunately, I believe Mark's incident was after that, so.
Yeah, no, it was, and I think that, I think that for us, the bigger concern and why we wrote the letter was that it's a pattern with the dogs. And so even after, ours was in 2020 the first time, or the early 2021, and then again in mid-2021, and it was sunny both times. They'd just gotten patches the second time. I was walking the second time, you were walking Bella the first time, and when I was walking Bella, it was completely unprovoked and scared me, quite honestly. Sunny was out on the side porch that is in discussion today and came running across the street, and thankfully Rob was home and quickly got her. Bella was injured, but again, we're friendly with our neighbors, we're friends, we don't want to create any more conflict. But because it's now been a pattern and we're hearing from more and more neighbors, it made sense for us to also come forward and make sure that things are being done to prevent other people or dogs from being hurt. I think that's the main concern here. We don't want to see any dogs put down. We want to see measures taken to keep the dogs contained and or muzzled if they're out on walks.
Okay, any questions, Mark?
Yeah, I was able to pull up the letter that you sent us, and the comment you said is, on numerous occasions, despite asking Mr. Templeton to keep the dog in the back fenced yard, the dog can be seen out in the front. Is that
Yes.
continuing?
Not anymore.
No.
Thank you.
And what address are you all at?
215 Franklin Road.
We appreciate you coming forward tonight, because this, again, we don't have very many of these in town, but it's important that we have as much information as we can to make the right decision, so. All right, no other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I address just what they said?
Sure.
Yeah, you have to come forward so that people don't get here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, as John described, before, we have an electric fence that goes all the way around the front and the back.
Yeah.
Once the second incident happened with John, since that date, we have never let the dogs in the front again. They've been confined to the back.
Okay.
So that was the measure that we took at that time, and that was a couple years ago.
All right.
Oh, and just one more thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Strange mentioned that, since the incident, that he has not heard your dogs barking as loudly or aggressively. What have you guys done?
Well, we did implement dog bark collars, and we just don't leave them unattended in the yard anymore, basically. They used to spend the whole day out in the back. We leave the back porch open. We have a dog door on the screen that exits the thing, so they had freedom to go in and out. And pretty much any time they hear or smell or however they detect any dogs coming to pass, they would go out and go to the sides and bark, and then as they run in, they bark on the other side. So we just stopped doing that.
Okay.
They don't do that anymore, for the most part.
Thank you.
Okay. No
that it?
questions? All right, thank you. Okay,
All right.
so we have our testimony, and then,
I'll move we close the public hearing.
Second.
second, okay. All those in favor? Okay, hearing is closed.
Unanimous?
Yes, unanimous vote to close the hearing, yeah.
Okay. So now you're faced with making a finding of whether Patches is a dangerous dog, whether Patches is a nuisance dog, or whether Patches is neither of those things. I would be happy to reread the definition.
Okay. Yes.
Well, I wrote down what you said, and I think, based on what we heard, it's clear that the dog meets the definition of a nuisance dog. And we also, I think Mike had sent us the summary from the Mass General Law that defines it. And so my personal sense is that we understand that this is a nuisance dog and find that, but I want to hear what other people may think.
Yeah, I mean, so I would be in favor of finding the dog as a nuisance dog and asking the owners to take certain remedial actions. So installing the storm door, we should maybe, I don't know if we should set a time frame for when that needs to be done, but soon. Installing that gate, asking them to have the dog trained, have some kind of training done, and then that the dog be muzzled on walks.
I see it differently, I guess. I don't think-
Additionally, I was also requesting the backyard to have some kind of, more than an electric fence, and I don't want to see them back here. I don't want to see, for all the parties here, I don't want to see anyone's dog get hurt. I don't want them to lose their dog. I think everyone in this room seems to be in agreement on that. So my feeling is that there should be more than an electric fence in the backyard.
I thought the backyard was fenced in.
It is an electric fence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think if they put up some kind of barrier or something, I've seen somebody in town, they got something, they ordered something, I think on Amazon or something, they just tied it into, it didn't have to be if there was just some barrier that blocks visibility for the dogs, I think they got these tie things they tied into their chain link or something. But something to block the visibility. I know the barking hasn't been a problem, so I guess, that's up to you whether or not you want to block the visibility, but I just don't want to, I don't want to see the dogs get out the backyard now. We've taken all this precaution on the front, and I see that lots of efforts have been made each time, but I kind of want to solve this once and for all so that now there's not another thing. So.
I agree. I do not want to have to see this situation happen again, and that's why I'm kind of surprised by some of the members that they don't see this dog as dangerous. I don't see what a dog has to do to be considered dangerous. If it runs out and bites your dog and bites you, and I think that's as dangerous. That's my definition of dangerous. I've seen a lot of dogs in my day. I've been chased by dogs, but I've never gotten bit by a dog just running around a neighborhood, and I lived in some pretty tough neighborhoods. So I think, it definitely meets the standard of a dangerousness, and I think, my feeling, they have something set up that would really help us. They said they have a dog run, and so I would think if we find this dog dangerous, we could require it to be attached to that dog run, and then when it's out in the community, it would be on a leash and be muzzled. I think these injuries are kind of serious. I think they've been ongoing in our community for a while. This is the first time it's come to our attention. 8 attacks is a pretty significant number. And I think that since the attack, the response by the dog owners have been sort of weak. I think that they put up a fence that our own personnel has said it doesn't really seem satisfactory. We know that the door that dogs escape from is the same door they have to bring all their groceries in. And if that dog isn't attached to something like a dog run, these dogs are going to escape because it's just natural. You have, I think about the door where I bring all my groceries in. Trying to keep a dog in that would be ridiculous. Between holidays and Christmas and groceries and everything else. And this is a dog that has been, attacking people. And so, I think that there are some measures have been taken, but I don't think they're significant enough. And so that's why I guess, I think we really have to deal with this more effectively, because I just don't see, in the last 2 weeks, the response to keep those dogs, they're quieter, they put a barking thing on them, but I just don't see how they're going to keep them in that house. And those dogs are going to jump over a half fence that's outside of that porch. They're big enough dogs. I'm just saying, I don't want to take the chance that another person gets bit or another animal gets attacked. You can make that decision if you think it's a nuisance, but I don't know what your definition of a nuisance is. A dog that's barking is a nuisance, yeah. A dog that's biting people, I think it's at the next level.
So what do you, if we found the dog was dangerous, what your recommendation would be to keep him on a dog run in the backyard?
Well, they give us some options here, and
I respectfully, I think that creates a more vicious dog, putting it on a tether, and I also think they can get off of that. I think having it fenced in and keeping the electric fence would be a better way of guaranteeing the dog staying back there and not not having them tied up. That's my feeling. And as far as that porch gate and the groceries, again, that is not meant to be to hold the dogs. It is meant to be a third door. So if they're going in, they're carefully shutting the glass door and they're shutting but it's meant to be just an extra precaution, the 2 extra doors. And just because you said they hadn't responded, they really have been trying to get everything. I know myself, I ordered windows from Home Depot in the last year and they took 6 months to come in. Ever since COVID, things take a lot longer. So I will say that they now have one and that I don't think that they're not responding.
Yeah.
Thank you. I guess my concern about the storm door only is that I have doors with storm doors, and it's almost impossible to open one door and close. You know, I mean, you can open the inside door and leave the storm door closed, but if you're going in and out, both doors are open.
Well,
and
Mark, if I could just-
unless there's a vestibule.
I think this
between the
is,
two.
and if anyone wants to correct me, this is the house, there's a door, there's like a doormat-sized landing.
Right.
And then a door, and then the gate. So these are not, it's not a storm door that is another door. That's
So the
swings both
storm
ways.
door is going to be at the top of the stairs?
Yeah,
Exactly.
on
And
that,
and the gate's going to be at the
Yeah.
bottom of the stairs?
Exactly.
so that,
Thank
so
you.
There's gonna be a
that,
gate, but if you're bringing stuff in the house, the gate has to be open, and both the storm door
No,
and the main
no,
doors
no,
will be
through
open.
the
because you could leave groceries here, you could leave groceries here.
So you
The
say
whole-
there's a vestibule?
There's a little porch.
No, I'm saying inside the house,
I get it.
is there a vestibule? Or does it just go right into the room? If it just goes into the room, then the two
Maybe-
doors
I'm
are
sure
right
it
next
does
to
here.
each other.
They're not. There's a landing.
That's the deck, you mean on the porch?
Yes.
Well, that's,
But there's a door
once
on the
they're
outside.
outside, once they're outside, I don't trust anything's gonna hold them back.
Then there's 2 more doors. And so I have I'm with Marty Lee. If to me, if you're gonna make them tether, tell them to get rid of the dog, because I don't think that's humane, and I think it does make it worse. That's the angriest dog in the world that's chained to the ground. If we do a nuisance finding, which is I'm in favor of for both dogs, I think that the side of the porch next to the fence, next to the storm door, should also have a heavy-duty fence or screen above it, so the dog can't jump there. I would never want it to be that we had a chance to do something and we didn't do enough, and somebody got hurt, and that's. But I want to do it in a fair way, and I think that, to me, this is, I'm thinking of like a lab to prevent a leak. You go in here, you pull the air out so nothing can get out, and then this is a double fail-safe. And that's why I think this needs to shut on its own. The storm door should shut on its own, so nobody can, to the extent we can, make sure that nothing gets left open, full stop. And I think that gives me a lot of assurances that a dog can't get out, because there's just too many places that stop them. Especially with that screen door, they're not jumping over, or I'm sorry, the screen above the fence on the porch. I think that's pretty safe.
Well, I have a lot of confidence in our animal control officer. And if we vote on a measure that she has to approve, I would feel comfortable with that. But I do not feel that after all the attacks that this dog has made in our community, that we can trust the owners to make the right decisions. So, I think that would be, whatever we decide, that we need to feel that our animal control officer sees the setup and approves of it, and reports back to this board, because I think this dog is more than a nuisance. Dan?
I just had a quick question for council. So if we were to deem this dog dangerous, we would have to follow the bullet points of the 7 options.
Correct.
There's no other option that we could add outside of these?
That's correct. You'd have to choose one or more of the 7.
Can you repeat those 7 options, Dan?
Here, you can,
And I could summarize them as well, because it's pretty dense statutory language. So option number 1 is that the dog be humanely restrained. Option number 2, and I think what we're discussing are flavors of option number 2, which is confining the dog to the premises of the keeper of the dog. And it talks about fencing in or keeping the dog in a secure area. So I think a lot of what's being discussed here is confining the dog consistent with the comments of the animal control officer. We're talking about fencing, we're talking about doors, we're talking about gates. So I think that's a sort of a flavor of option number 2. Option number 3 is muzzling, which has been recommended by the animal control officer. Option number 4 is ordering that the owner provide proof of insurance in amount of $100,000 or more to cover the cost of any incidences. Option number 5 is that the owner of the dog provide the licensing authority with identifying information about the dog, such as a chip or photographs or something of that nature. Option number 6 is to alter the dog, which we've heard testimony has already been done. And then option number 7, which is the most extreme of circumstances, is to put the dog down. And I don't hear anybody talking about that or anybody even asking for it.
But you said that if we found this dog to be a nuisance dog, we could say that the dog needs to be muzzled when it's walked in the community.
Correct. The way the statute works, if you find the dog to be a nuisance,
Yeah.
you merely have to then make an order for remedial measure. The statute doesn't tell you what that is, so it's much broader latitude. If you find that the dog's dangerous, the statute specifically says 1 or more of the following 7, so you're boxed in.
And so now, if a dog is determined to be a nuisance at one point, and then they had another offense, I mean, what difference does that make? I mean, if they were deemed a dangerous dog at one point, a nuisance dog at another point,
Right, so if based upon this incident, you were to find the dog a nuisance dog,
Yeah.
if there was a subsequent incident, that would stand as a completely independent assessment. You could, at that point, find the dog to be dangerous, if it was appropriate, if it met the definition, and then you could make an order based on that subsequent incident at that time.
Yeah, and I think so, I liked Dan's idea that this dog should receive some type of training, and that's something that we can ask them to do if we deem the dog as a nuisance dog, that we cannot do if we deem it as a dangerous dog.
That's true.
So we're looking at a list. So if we determine he's a nuisance dog, we say you would have to have some training, receive training. Muzzled in the community. I mean, I don't know if people feel about that. I mean, he's bitten humans and other dogs. And then the other thing would be that there would be some restraints such as secure doors and so forth. Or, when things are being brought in the house, that the dog should be tied on, secured humanely to something when doors are going to be open for a longer period of time, which I think is normal. We can't tell people not to go in and out their doors, and that, the restraints, to confine the dog to the premises would have to be approved by our animal control officer. I mean, those are things I'd agree to.
What do you mean by restraints?
Well, the dog needs to be confined to the premises in some ways by using securely enclosed locked doors, multiple doors like she's described. That's what I mean. I mean, right now the dog is not restrained and can run out and attack what he wants. It's not restrained.
And I said, why are we talking about one dog? We have...
No, there's 2 dogs,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
right.
Both dogs attacked another dog, at least. I think they're... I don't know why we're only talking about Patches. It seems like Sonny may have got worse when Patches came in. So
Okay.
I think we should consider both as nuisances. I hate to say that, but
Okay.
I'm here because it's serious.
All right.
The question is, I mean, we need to bring this to a vote at some point. We need to determine what remediation we're gonna recommend for the family and for the community. And frankly, I believe that we have a broader latitude, as Vineet pointed out, that to do that if we determine that the dog is a nuisance dog, and then all I think we need to do is agree on what a reasonable remediation is without it being so excessive that, A, we can't enforce it, and we're keeping Marty Lee busy 24 hours a day figuring this out, and something that, really isn't gonna work anyway. And I think some of the things I heard tonight are very good, and some of the things are not gonna be working, in my opinion. But I think that we need to move forward with a determination, and I think the best way to do it is to separate the decision of nuisance versus dangerous, and then if we determine one or the other, then we go to the remediation, because that then opens or closes our options. And so, unless somebody's got something else to say, I'm gonna make a motion that we deem the dogs at this residence to be nuisance dogs, and that we determine remediations that we need to take to follow.
Get a second? Okay. Any further discussion?
I would just say, I think these are great points. Just looking at, is it a dangerous dog versus a nuisance? It almost seems like this is something that should be updated, and I know that's not something that we're probably gonna be doing, but, to Vinny's point, it gives us the flexibility that we want, at the end of the day, make both parties happy here, but we want to make sure people are safe. And I'm reading, my first thought is, this is a dangerous dog. It attacked someone. It bit somebody. But then you look at some of the options, and the options that we have, that we're left with, are pretty poor. Like, I don't want to see a dog tethered in someone's yard. That's not good for anybody.
But Dan, the definition of a dog is a nuisance, and G is bites or threatens to bite a person or persons. So biting can be included in a nuisance, or can be restricted. So you're right. I'm just saying that everything we saw does fall within nuisance. Some of it may also fall within dangerous. But I propose the motion because I can, in good conscience, say it falls within these definition of a nuisance dog.
That actually brings me to a good question. Nuisance is a term of art from the state statute. It's also in our bylaws. What are we finding under? It doesn't matter.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
State statutes trump bylaws,
Well,
don't they?
yeah, but you just pointed to G.
That's state statute.
No, that's our bylaw.
Okay.
The finding should be under the state statute.
Okay. I mean, I disagree. That's our nuisance definitions, which I think can be guidance. All right, so no, I don't think it matters, but just for the record, if anything ever did.
Right. I think that's important. So under the state law definition of nuisance, there's 3 prongs. We'd be looking at the 3rd prong, and that would be a dog being found a nuisance based on having threatened or attacked livestock, a domestic animal, or a person, but such threat or attack was not a grossly disproportionate reaction under all the circumstances. So it could be a disproportionate reaction, because you would be making a finding that it wasn't a grossly disproportionate reaction.
Do we need to include that in our finding, or is our motion enough?
The motion's sufficient.
Okay.
A simple finding that it's a nuisance. is
Okay.
sufficient.
Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll call a vote. All those in favor of the nuisance? Okay. And so the next point would be the repercussions. And yes, do you have?
Yeah, I wrote down 6 things that I think we should do.
Okay.
But I don't know if I missed anything. An outdoor fence of the same height as existing all the way around the backyard. If Marty Lee thinks it's tall enough for the dog not to jump over. A storm door at the top of the steps of the front porch that is self-closing. Gate at the bottom of the steps that is self-closing. and this is the one I brought up, the heavy-duty screen installed next to the door on the porch, remedial training, and then muzzled on community walks.
And
So it's 6 things.
could you add, well, would you, I think one sentence is that, when those doors are gonna be open for carrying things in and out of the house, the dog should be, tied up. It should be confined. The dog should be
Well,
humanely confined to the premises.
I think they are confined because they'll be in the house.
If the
And
doors are open and they're carrying things in and out, the dog is not gonna be confined. Because if
That's
they
the
have a
point of the
dog
storm
that runs
doors, though.
freely in their house, he's free, and when the doors are open, he'll run out. But if you say, okay, we're gonna bring in the groceries, let's put the dog on the run while we bring in groceries, and then take him off.
But all 3 of these doors shouldn't be open at the same time. That's why they're self-closing, that's why there's a break. I don't think that's necessary. This is confining to me.
Well, we'll know if it's necessary if we have another hearing. So,
Josh, are you making those 6 suggestions in form of a motion?
Yes, I will move, I can read them in if we need to, but I move that we,
Can you just clarify for me, because I'm the one who's gonna be inspecting, that, what you mean by the screen on the porch? Could you point to that picture?
Mike, do you still have that?
Could you, I'm just not clear on what you're wanting done.
So this will be,
Sorry.
There you go, yeah.
this would be the gate,
Right,
this will be the storm door,
right.
fence here. I'm sorry, screen above the fence to prevent jumping over or anything like that. So
Okay, but,
it's fully enclosing here.
I don't know how it's fully enclosing. If it comes out that screen door, it can go right down the steps. The gate is there. How do we enclose, what
There's a
does
gate.
that screen do? Where does this,
The screen is here.
the
There's a
screen
door
covers?
here, so a dog can't jump over this fence.
Marty Lee, if his dog is on the
I get
porch.
what you're saying. I got it
You're
now.
enclosing
Yep.
the porch. You're basically saying that they should have an
Yes.
enclosed porch.
Yes, one
Okay.
more step to,
I got it. So you can't, so it's forced to go, if it, hopefully it would never get to, but it doesn't have the option of jumping that way over the fence.
right.
I think you barely fit back there, and that white fence you're seeing is very high. It would be almost physically impossible to walk back down.
Well, almost is not enough, unfortunately,
Um,
Okay.
Just
But-
one point about
Yeah.
the motion, would we be attaching a time frame or a date in which
Yeah.
this gets completed?
I think a time frame and subject to approval by Marty Lee. So, I don't know, 30 days?
I mean, I think.
The door's there.
Some of the projects could, first of all, it costs a lot of money. I had people come to my house recently, and it's really expensive to do these
Yeah.
things. So I guess I would try to prioritize some of what the Templeton should do, just to help them, financially with these projects, but also for the safety of the neighborhood as well.
Right.
So-
Well,
Yeah, I agree. I think 30 days is really hard to find people to do stuff, like I told you my window thing. So if you could give me a priority, we're looking at the back fence, we're looking at the muzzle would start immediately, the storm dog they got, the gate, the screen, I don't know, they'd have to probably get that special ordered and a person, and that seems to me like that would take longer than 30 days, but I guess when you give me the guidelines of what you want, I want the order of when you want it done by, and I think 30 days is, for everything, I think, too soon, but.
I mean, I'm sympathetic. We also have dogs out biting.
No, I know. I'm trying to be realistic also of hiring somebody, maybe we could give it 2 months for the screen, because hiring somebody to come out and special order that, I just don't know that it's possible. But they could try, and I guess we could report back and see if there were efforts made.
Mark suggested the end of the year, which is about 3.5 months. But that door should go up, it's already ordered, that should go up as quick as possible.
Is money an issue?
It's always an issue.
Money's always-
Money's always an issue.
Well, I want to know from the Templetons if this is doable and how quickly.
Have the door, then we'll put it away. We're just keeping them more confined in general till these things are implemented as well. As far as like bringing groceries in and out, we already confine them when we are going to bring things, when we're going to be going in and out. So.
And then the training is kind of vague, like how much training, how.
Do you think that you could have most of this done in 30 days and then not leave the dogs outside until, you're saying the biggest cost thing would be fencing the backyard?
Yeah, we won't let them outside.
You won't let them
until
stay in
we
the
get
back
fence in, sure.
until it's fenced, and when do you think you would be able to get that done by?
I don't know, I've
Where the
never looked
ground
into building a
freezes.
fence.
I mean, that
Do
will
that.
probably, I mean, it's like, you know, I think around this similar time, we got a fence put in a couple years ago, and they didn't come over to put it in until like next June, right? So it's just, it takes a while.
So that's
not
what I'm
some-
saying. I wasn't
that's
trying to
not
say
something
that I
think we
didn't
could really
care or that I'm
expect.
taking it lightly. I'm trying to be practical about what
Yeah,
you're saying,
yeah.
that everything
Yeah, I
takes
agree.
a
I mean, I
while.
agree with you that I think this, and what Dan was saying, that we need to prioritize this, that this is going to be a huge costs, and this is a lot to get done.
Well,
So,
I say we make it harsh, and you can ask for relief. I mean, we're trying to do what's safest, and if something is not doable, this is our former colleague and our friend got hurt, and that's not great. So my opinion is we shoot for the moon, and you can add, if something's not reasonable, if it doesn't work, you can come back for relief. But I know we don't want to talk about this all the time, but that's how I feel.
All right, and I would say that in terms of priorities, the front door would be, I think that's the first priority.
The front door and the gate.
Yeah, that finding a way to keep that front door, that the dog can never get out of that. There's always a third thing, and we would trust our animal control officer to make sure that front door is set. And then, the backyard, I could see, we work on that, and they have a run, and they could make adjustments, so, but I think that front door's really got to, I'd give 30
So,
30 days
yeah,
on
if
that.
we
That's
wanna
gonna be
do this-
done in 30 days, definitely, the door and the gate, immediately. I mean, it might be done by next weekend. I
If we wanna-
The gate's easy to put in, that's not a
Yeah.
problem.
So
we wanna do
The fence in the
close
backyard's the
porch.
one thing, I don't know how long that'll take, I'd have to find out. I'm not a fence builder, so I can't do it myself, but, so I'm gonna need to rely on a company to do
Right.
that.
But,
So- so I don't- I can't-
the other side is, we don't want to put you in trouble with your landlord, that they'll say, this isn't the way we want our house to look,
That, it's not
Also,
that kind of
just note
situation,
that-
we're actually buying the home.
Oh,
Our
okay.
brother-in-law just bought it in the interim.
Also note that he did stipulate that he wants the gate to be self-closing.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So if you want this in the form of a motion,
Yeah.
I move that we require the Templetons to install a storm door, a self-closing storm door at the top of the steps of the front porch within 30 days, install a gate at the bottom of the steps that is self-closing within 30 days, and an outdoor fence of the same height all the way around the backyard within, say, 180 days. A heavy-duty screen installed at on the porch fence next to the door within 60 days, and that the dogs be muzzled on remedial walks. And if somebody wants to change this by motion, or want to amend it, and that Patches attend 10 sessions of remedial training by a trainer approved by our animal control officer within the next 3 months, 90 days.
Second?
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. And the hearing's closed, but thank you for coming in.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, it was helpful.
Glad.
First time we've done one of these, we hope we did our best.
Hope it's the last one.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right, so we, there was another opportunity for residents' comments, or not residents, but select board comments. I don't know if you guys had one.
I did not. I don't know if Dan had something.
Did you have a president comment?
It was just really just want to say thank you again for the Pride event. I know a handful of us from the select board attended. That was a great event. It was nice to say a few words with Tom, as it was last year with Josh as well. And then I know Vineeth and I also had attended a couple of the 9/11 events as well. So wanted to thank the fire department for that, as well as Yeshiva Academy. So although certainly a somber day, nice to see the students out there and see the rabbi and meet everybody. So I want to say thank you, and that's all that I had.
All right, great. We still have on, what's it, midnight now? No. So we have a bunch of stuff to do. Let's look at, we were going to have a presentation from Fuss and O'Neill, and I guess we'll move forward with that. This is on the water line replacement for the Converse Street L project. And we have a representative from Fuss O'Neill.
Yeah,
You
so
know if they're
moving
ready?
in Mike Nelson now.
That'd be sleep.
Mike Nelson. It's from the old Sea Hunt days. I'm dating myself.
Never heard of that.
Huh? You never heard of that? Never heard of Sea Hunt, Mike Nelson? Yeah. Nope. Mark, you've heard of that.
Yes, I have.
It was gifted to me on DVD. I own season 1. Secret Agent Mike Nelson, yeah.
All right, so what about this water project? Can you fill us in on, or Lynn, did you want to say something first? or-
No, kick it off.
Okay.
Okay, do I have the ability to present? I can share my screen.
Yes, you do.
DPW Director Sean Dewson is here with us. He might want to start off with a couple words before I start the presentation.
No, you can lead right in, Mike.
Okay. I will share my screen then. There you go. Come on, switch screens on me. Excellent. Everyone can see the presentation and hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm Mike Nelson. I'm project manager and the principal designer for the water and sewer improvements, which we have before you tonight. I work for Fuss and O'Neill, and I work on behalf of Long Meadow, the Public Works Department. Sean Van Dusen, Tim Keene, and their staff are work as part of the team, side by side with us, to design these improvements. So what we have for you tonight is a short presentation. Excellent. We have mostly pictures for you. We have 2 slides that have a bunch of bullets on them because they are project scope, statistics, or costs. But mainly we have pictures of the project area for you. We're outlining what we're going to talk about. Why are we doing this water and sewer project? Why now? What is driving it? What are the impacts? Specifically, we're talking about traffic impacts, as what most people are interested in. We have some details on the timeline and construction, and of course, the cost for appropriation for the town to complete these improvements. I had already mentioned the project team is principally Sean and Tim from the Public Works Department. I also want to give a shout out to Mike and Craig Markham, who are a very talented team to work with that are a pleasure as a client tonight, for sure. Okay, the important part of this slide is the project area. So to orient you, we've got Route 5 Long Meadow Street running to the north-south. Converse is a major route across town, and Forest Glen Road abuts the Parklands and Springfield, essentially. Currently, in this same project area, the same outlined corridor, there is a Mass DOT TIP project. TIP is an acronym for a program that is highly beneficial to cities and towns. where the a major roadway reconstruction project, the design is paid for by the municipality and construction is paid for by MassDOT. So it's an incredible opportunity for the town. And they were waiting on a list to do this for some time. This is a $9 million TIP project that is going to completely redo these corridors, Converse, Long Meadow, and portions of Forest Glen. We're talking new travel lanes, new pedestrian accommodations, new signals, intersection improvements, multimodal improvements that will be better for the environment of walking or using these roads, and certainly to help congestion. So we are here tonight because the utilities that are underneath these roads are old, and they will put the new pavement and the new concrete at risk if their useful life happens to end after this roadway project is complete, meaning water main break, sewer collapses, things like that. Much of the water mains in this area are old, are early 1900s. Some of them are asbestos cement, which is still a material that we use in water mains that is perfectly healthy if kept wet, but we do like to phase out asbestos cement mains, which there are plenty of in Long Meadow. But the main driver of this program is to get in before the roadway project and replace these utilities so that they can continue to serve you for another 75 to 100 years, and then do the roadway project. I'll move on. These are renderings of what your beautiful roadways will look like after the Mass DOT project is done. Furthest to the left, you've got Long Meadow Street Route 5. This is the intersection with Forest Glen where it turns into Columbus Ave and actually Springfield. In the middle is Converse Street at Long Meadow, and that will look pretty different. A lot of improvements there for traffic flow and congestion. And to the right is Laurel at Converse. And I would assume that everyone listening to this presentation is pretty familiar with these intersections and the traffic volumes and the challenges. And in the right is just a locus map similar to the cover page. So this is a boring slide, but it is important. So what have we done? So since conceiving this program, we have been on an expedited schedule to get in front of this MassDOT TIP project. You wait on the TIP list for a long time, and then your number is called. And when your number is called, you have to be ready. So they've been in design for the roadway project when we started to look at utilities. And we have met an expedited schedule with the goal of constructing this next year. So what have we done and what are we constructing? So about a mile of sewer was video inspected. We put a camera in the pipe and took a look at the condition. We did manhole inspections on 42 manholes, 42 structures, and we did find things. We found 4 locations where there was going to be an imminent sewer collapse. So that is excellent. One location where we can actually get rid of a whole stretch of sewer, which is great to make your system smaller. Ultimately, we will use trenchless rehabilitation, so we have the technology to line these sewers without digging them all up. We will line almost a mile of sewer. About 4/5 of what we inspected needs some level of rehabilitation. We will rehabilitate the manholes that are associated with those. About 14 manholes will, essentially become brand new. The big one is the water main. So we will be installing close to 10,000 feet of water main. 170 homes in this project area will receive new copper services. 24 hydrants will be replaced to brand new. This project primarily, in addition to protecting the investment from this large roadway remodel, is to increase redundancy and increase fire flow in the system. As an aside, thinking about your water network, you get your water from Springfield Water and Sewer. It comes into your system on Forest Glen Road. From there, it goes out to the rest of town, up to the tanks. Where we are working is closest to your source. So every drop of water that enters town comes through the pump station in Forest Glen and then through the pipes that we're going to replace. Right now, you've got one kind of main backbone pipe that comes out to Long Meadow Street and down, and then branches off and feeds the system, just like the veins in your body. We are going to create a second pipe with this program. I think it's pretty fortuitous, the timing of this presentation with the boil water order that Springfield just dealt with, because they had a major transmission main get washed away by a drainage issue. This program at the end of the day will not only renew these old utilities, but will provide a level of redundancy that you have not had in 100 years. So this is a fantastic operational upgrade. It removes hydraulic restrictions. We have a bunch of old, smaller pipe that's stuck into the system, and it makes it all uniform, new, and large diameter. It increases emergency preparedness as well. We're going to make some modifications to how the regional Springfield system interfaces with Long Meadow, and we're going to make it more redundant and better prepared for emergencies. This is just a couple snips of the design plans. My intent here is not to walk through the design for you. This is to give you a flavor of what this construction is going to look like. So, the very unvarnished truth here is that this is not going to be a benign construction site. This is going to be disruptive to traffic or to residents that are near it. It is our job to move quickly, have it planned well, foresee the issues, do it quickly and efficiently. So this, what you're looking at here, is a snip of the intersection of Forest Glen and Long Meadow. The dark black lines are the new pipe that's going in. And so Forest Glen is to the bottom of the page, Columbus Avenue and Springfield to the right, and Long Meadow Street to the left. As you see, we have to cross Long Meadow at this intersection. Now, if you've ever sat at this intersection at 5 o'clock, you might ask how we're going to do that. It gets better. This numbered route has a 8-inch thick concrete subbase, which is not fun to jackhammer through. There are electric and other buried utilities. Long Meadow has the great fortune of having buried utilities for electric, cable, gas, which are great for quality of life, but make construction a little dicey. So this is an example of what we will be doing at night. It is most effective to do this work at night. It will have impact on the residents closest to it, but for the hundreds or thousands of commuters and residents that are going through processing through this intersection every day, it is by far the least impactful choice. Some other examples. This is Forest Glen. You can see here the dashed line at the bottom of the road is a sewer that will be treacherously rehabbed. The thick black lines in the middle and the top of the page are new water lines. The kind of grayed out building is that main booster station where all of your drinking water comes from. And as you can see, all the pipes leaving that station, large diameter, big pipes, all be brand new, and there'll be more than one of them. So we will be prepared and upgraded. Moving quickly, but this is the traffic impacts. We, as a design team, have done everything we can to minimize traffic impacts from this project, but there will be traffic impacts. For example, we have done everything we can to avoid Route 5. It would not be fun to go straight down the middle of Route 5 with a trench. We are going through the grass strip. In fact, we are dodging mature trees along the way. We have painstakingly gone out and measured and put provisions into the contract to protect these trees, but we are staying out of the road. We have a water main on one side of the road. Now we'll have a second water main on the other side for redundancy and better serve those customers. When we do cross a major intersection, we will do it at night. And finally, we will detour wherever we can. So the idea right now is when we are working on Forest Glen, make it one way towards Route 5, towards Long Meadow Street, and detour everyone else down Commerce, trying to make it the other way. When we are on Commerce, one way, I don't know if direction matters as much on Commerce, but one way, and the other direction will get detoured down Forest Glen. We will have to make them work as if they were one-way pairs during construction. We do have some side streets which are much less concerned. Llewellyn is a great example of that. And then every side street that we cross, we have to tie in those water mains. So there will be local closures, local traffic only, and those will be well signed and coordinated in advance. This is just another visual of where our greatest impacts will be for congestion and traffic. The intersection of Forest Glen and Long Meadow, the intersection of Converse and Long Meadow, the intersection of Converse and Laurel. Zooming into those locations one more time, on the left we've got Long Meadow and Forest Glen. We just talked about that intersection. On the right is Long Meadow and Converse. You'll notice the water main is at an angle, and that's to accommodate the future geometry of the road. There is a turning lane and a pedestrian refuge. But you can see that there's quite a bit of work in that intersection. And so it is best done at night. And this is Laurel at Converse, where you can see, again, this water main actually does run down the middle of Laurel Street. But we are doing our best to keep it to the south side of Converse Street. One more boring slide for you. We are almost done. The project schedule. So we are actually at 100% design now. We have already had our 50 and 90% milestones, our design charrettes with the Public Works Department. It's been independently reviewed, and we have an opinion of probable cost. All that's left to do is stamp the drawings. We are here for project appropriation. We would like to appropriate funding at special town meeting this fall. We will be ready to bid as soon as the money is made available to the solicitor's office. We will be ready to go. Our goal, and this is important, is to be the first municipality to bid a job for the 2024 construction season. We want to be the first ones to lock in a contractor. We want to be the first people to buy ductile iron water main from the suppliers. And we want our contractor to spend the bulk of the winter planning its execution. We want to start March 2024. This is almost 2 miles of water main. And we expect it will take almost 2 full construction seasons. It will certainly take from March to December of 2024. And then we think it will take from March to about September is our estimate in 2025. We will begin work on Forest Glen. Work will proceed down towards Route 5 in the grass strip along the length of Route 5 until we get to Converse, then down Converse, down Laurel, down Llewellyn, and then it will have to go back to Forest Glen to finish the second piece of the water main there. We have a construction sequence that makes sense. We will start with the trenchless sewer rehab as early as we can in the spring so that we are not temperature dependent. If we have a winter that is stubborn and hangs on in the spring and we can't put temporary water main down the street for fear of freezing, we can start with the trenchless sewer and not lose time. So it's well thought out. We've gone over it with Springfield Water and Sewer Commission to keep them in the loop. We've gone over it in the Public Works Department, and we feel we're ready. This is the last slide, and the most important. This is the appropriation slide. Maybe I should minimize that. We've done a construction cost estimate. We've had it verified by an estimating subcontractor. And to the best of our knowledge, this is a $7.3 million construction cost. Police and traffic management, major component of this. We're not going to be able to do any work on the road without assistance from PD. Safety for traffic management and traffic maintenance during construction. We are working with large diameter water mains. As we mentioned, we're very close to the source. Pressures are high, all the flow is high, construction sequencing matters. 16-inch and 12-inch water main, those are fairly big diameters. Full-time construction inspection for the duration of construction. And last, a healthy project contingency. The bidding environment since the pandemic has been challenging, to say the least. My least favorite part of the job is the cost estimate, because the best I can hope for is to do my job perfectly and no one cares or notices. but more often than not, you just have all the chance in the world to be wrong. We have gone through great lengths to try to not be wrong, including a 20% project contingency for everything from the volatility of the labor workforce, how much we now have to pay people, to the cost of the ductile iron water main itself. We are fortunate in a sense that it does not go to bid last year, because we would not have been able to get pipe last year. We should be able to get pipe next year. When you put it together, it's $9.9 million. We're asking for a $10 million appropriation. We feel that 20% contingency is appropriate. And just a reminder that this is a major waterworks, water and sewer upgrade, 10,000 feet of pipe, and it's going to be 2 years. And so this construction period and the appropriation will be spread over a 2-year period. I hope that was efficient for you, but not too quick, that you felt rushed. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions or go back to any slides that you'd like me to. Thank you for your attentiveness.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Josh Levine.
Thanks, Mike. I had 2 questions for you. Does this need to be done in the rest of the town, or do we only look at a limited part?
Sean could probably answer that for the rest of the system. My answer will be that we need to look at all the utilities that are directly underneath the beautiful roadway reconstruction.
Okay.
So we're on the clock for that, because you're going to get these beautiful roadways, and that's locked into the state. As for the rest of town, you're supposed to be doing 1% of your system a year, but that's very rule of thumb. Sean has the details.
Yeah, so Josh, you're going to be getting a presentation next month about the condition of the rest of town. One of the driving forces behind that creation of that capital plan was this project that we hadn't anticipated doing, and seeing that the TIP money had arrived, it became really important to get this design work done and get this water and sewer main done in front of that TIP project. This is the exact reason why we need a long-term capital plan, and it's one that you'll be given sort of a bird's eye view on next month, and we'll be able to have a good cost of the long-term fiscal implications of replacing the rest of the system.
All right.
And hopefully a timeline for that.
Thanks, Sean. That answers the question. You mentioned a couple times we're doing work at night, Mike. What does that mean? What times? You're on mute, Mike.
Thank you. No, it means working at night until the wee hours of the morning. So it means waiting for the afternoon commute to die down so that you can reroute traffic or severely limit traffic all the way to one side of one shoulder so you can dig a trench. And then working until 5 in the morning and giving yourself enough time to put road plates down over those trenches and backfill with asphalt so that you're ready for the 6 a.m. commute.
How does this work with our bylaws? I haven't had a night project.
We'll have to talk about that. Yeah, I've
Well,
heard,
yeah.
I've heard some stories about some uproar regarding night work, but we'll definitely need to discuss it because the impacts of daytime work, as you see in these specific areas, may have a crippling effect outside of Long Meadow and just trying to get through town. So we definitely need to have a conversation about
Yeah,
that.
I'm just thinking of my buddy Ryan, the first house in Long Meadow.
Yep.
Mark Gold.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much. Just so, from background, I sit on the MPO of the PVPC, so I know a little bit about the traffic tip program that's maybe going to be there, maybe not going to be there in 2025. And I got a whole myriad of questions. The first one is if Route 5, the water line's going to go in what you indicate to be the tree belt, which is that 30-foot or 40-foot area that we've got between the street and the sidewalk, why don't we just close Forest Glen for 3 months? You know, I mean, pardon me for saying this, but it sounds like the people who've designed all this are engineers, but none of them live in town. And Sean, that includes you. But the people who live in town and drive there would probably say, just close Forest Glen, you know, and finish the work and stop the nonsense that's gonna take 6 months to bother us when you can do it in a month or 6 weeks or 8 weeks of closing the road. And I think somebody needs to take a look at it with some input from people who live in town. The other thing I would comment on is, and I understand the impetus behind doing this. I'll tell you that I've been on this board forever now, and we took a long look 15 years ago at Converse Street, where the water mains were 100 years old. And, you know, the state's now come through recently and redid Converse Street, but my understanding is we didn't replace all those water pipes there. And so, yes, we need to do this, you know, with the budgets in this town, and I understand we're gonna do this through water and sewer rates, but $10 million is potentially gonna break us. And the question is, do we really need to do this? Or are we doing it opportunistically because, well, if we do it now and then we resurface the roads, it'll be good for another 150 years? And I don't know the answer to that, but maybe we're better off saying, let's only do part of this now because $10 million is more than potentially the town can financially handle. So, you know, I appreciate this coming forward, but I think there's been an assumption that we're going to do it, we're going to spend $10 million, and we're going to do it this way. But I'd like to suggest that there may be other ways to have looked at this. And I'm not sure that, yeah, and oh, by the way, I'm a chemical engineer, so I'm an engineer, I'm you know, cognizant of what you're doing as an engineering studies. I understand the planning and what goes into this, but there's been, as far as I know, no input from the community at all in this project. And we sit here all the time and talk about, we need hearings, we need input from the community, we need to know what's going on, and haven't heard any of that. So I think it's a great project. I understand the need for it, but I'm not sure that we need to bite all this off just because, well, we're resurfacing the roads, so we might as well do the water and sewer lines underneath it. You know, especially since the water lines on Route 5 aren't going under the street.
Any other?
So Mark, if you don't mind, so we definitely have plenty of time to talk about closing roads and traffic. That's just the initial input that was given from my staff, who have done quite a few projects here. I think the night work is something that's happened before with DPW. So more than happy to, of course, get as much input as possible. In terms of the lines themselves, this project came about mostly when the engineering team and water department got together in the same room and realized how many breaks we'd had, both water and sewer in both areas. And as Mike had mentioned, when we TV the lines and see that sewer lines had collapsed in several places and are in imminent need of failure. I think the best main we have there is 85 years old. The worst is closer to 100. So, yeah, I mean, we could skip it, and that's a gamble, and that's a decision you guys have to make. But I do think it would be a wasted opportunity not to bring this to the board and not to bring it forward right now. It's the last chance we're going to have before we do a $10 million upgrade.
I get that, Sean, but I don't understand the Route 5 part of it. Was do it now because we're resurfacing Route 5 when the pipes aren't going under Route 5. They're going under the tree belt. That disconnect, did we lose them? That disconnect really threw me. I just missed that whole disconnect.
They're still on.
Okay, I just missed that whole disconnect. That disconnect. We've got to do it now because we've talked about that and it makes a lot of sense. Dig up the road now because we're going to resurface it. But you're not resurfacing, you're not digging up the road. And somebody needs to explain that to me.
I'll let them jump in, but that piece of the road will be done at some point.
We're still here, we can hear you, we don't. We will be crossing it quite often, would be my response. We have 4 crossings of Route 5 at Forest Glen, at Converse, at Farmington, and 1 more between Converse, I think maybe is at South Park. I think we cross it. So I think we have 4 crossings of Route 5, but I understand what you're saying.
And Mike and Sean, that section of Long Meadow Street is the next scheduled TIP project for Long Meadow, right?
Yes.
So either way, we either do it now or we do it
After they've resurfaced the road.
or as part of that project. So I think I'd rather do it in 2024 dollars than 2026, just the way things have gone.
Okay. Do we have any other questions, Dan?
Yeah, thanks. Mike, really appreciate you going through the presentation tonight. Just had a question. You know, we've been hearing a lot about water quality issues in town. I'm just wondering if you can touch on potentially the impact at Forest Glen Pump Station and how that might impact the water quality in Long Meadow.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to it, not specific to any one problem in any one area. But, you know, water mains can last 100 years or more, as we see. Some of these are like 1913, 1915. And as they do, especially the old unlined ones, they tuberculate and they grow a biofilm on them, which sounds kind of gross, but it's actually good. It's part of the treatment process. But as the water main diameter shrinks in usable size because it's had all of this buildup on the inside of it after 100 years, area goes down, velocity goes up, so pipes, water is traveling through the pipe. Any change in direction stirs up that biofilm, and you can get discolored water, so you get discolored water complaints. This is what happens when someone opens a fire hydrant. Someone opens a fire hydrant, and all the water rushes towards it. There's a change in direction and velocity spike. It stirs things up, and you get dirty water complaints everywhere. Like it's directly related to that. So when you put these new mains in, you get fresh mains that are cement lined, which do not tuberculate. The minerals don't attach to the cement, so it kind of solves that problem, and it gets rid of all that old pipe. So that is a water quality improvement. The pump station itself is not going to see any operational changes, no chemical additions or anything will change from that. You will just have pipes that are freshly cement lined with their full diameter with a fresh biofilm that will form, that should be able to absorb changes in direction, fire hydrants opening without like velocities spiking through the roof.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Will we get a copy of that report? Thank you.
All right. And Lynn, did you have any other comments? I appreciate you telling, your opinion about doing it 2024 money versus 2026 money. So it's something we'll come back and discuss later, right? At some point.
So to comment on that, what we will be planning right now, as we prepare the draft warrant, we will be presenting a warrant article to fund this project out of water and sewer enterprise funds. I'll have more information on that as we present the warrant to you, but that is our plan right now. And then you will need to start having those discussions on whether you support putting this forward or whether you don't. But our stance will be, it's the best practice recommendation that if you know a roadway project is coming up, you replace the aging infrastructure underneath it. Because I don't want to be answering the phone, as I'm sure none of you do, from a resident saying, you just paved this road and now there's a water main break, why didn't you replace the water line? It's not a good use of funds. And I understand the price tag is a really hard one to swallow. I'll ask you to brace yourselves for the next meeting when you hear about the rest of the water assets in the town, because the numbers are daunting. But when you're faced with a utility that is 100 years old in places, I mean, somebody's got to pay the price at some point to upgrade it.
Right, and the good news is the whole town is not that old. This section of town is full of houses that are over 100 years old, and so it is going to cost more. I mean, there's just no way around it, that we're going to have to deal with, some water mains and sewers that are as old as you can have.
So Sean, can I just ask that in addition to what we're coming up with for the capital in Long Meadow, that we start finding out from the Springfield Water and Sewer what our portion of their major capital is going to be? Because, whether it's 10 million, I mean, this is $10 million. The south end of town needs the same thing, because I know it, and it's gonna be probably the same order of magnitude, right? When we do Route 5 down there, we ought to, when that south end comes a couple of years later. And if the city of, or the Springfield Water and Sewer Commissioners come back and they want to impose on towns like Long Meadow part of their capital project, we can be talking about a significant impact on water rates in this town. I mean, we're talking doubling or tripling water rates.
Yes, definitely, Mark, I'll follow up with them, and I do want to emphasize that this is obviously not the way you want to go about projects. We want to have this stuff laid out with a lot of public engagement, and unfortunately, it's taken a little bit of time to get the full plan together. I do think we're on solid footing now compared to where we were a little while ago, and hopefully we're able to sort of more methodically address these issues in totality, and then, with a long-term projection in the out years.
Okay, well, thank you for the presentation, Mike and Sean. Thank you for being with us. Got a lot of stuff to go over, but we will hear more about this, I'm sure, or we'll look for the warrant article. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate your time. Have a good night.
All right, it's now time for our town manager's report.
So on the same topic of water, as you are all likely aware, the Springfield Water Sewer Commission in the city of Springfield had a large water main break last week. A 36-inch line caused catastrophic water issues for the cities of Springfield and Ludlow, or the town of Ludlow. This did have a short and minor impact on Long Meadow, as our water is supplied by Springfield Water Sewer. We experienced some low pressure issues on our incoming supply. However, the Long Meadow side of the system maintained adequate pressure and volume, and we did not lose water. Through the duration of the event, some Long Meadow residents received an emergency alert distributed from MEMA through the MEMA emergency alerting system, stating that a boil water notice was in effect. The MEMA messaging used the WEA system, which is the Weather Emergency Alert System, which caused a great deal of confusion for our residents. When we learned that this is how the messaging was going out, we asked MEMA to modify the message and stop using the system, as it was not community specific. They also did not give any identifying information when they put the call out. Unfortunately, our requests were not honored, and another incomplete, confusing message was delivered. We have expressed our disappointment to both MEMA and Springfield Water and Sewer in how the communication was handled. There is definitely a lot of room for improvement. We strongly encourage residents to sign up or stay signed up for the town's reverse 911 Code Red system. Messages distributed through our Code Red system will only come from town officials in emergency situations. Will only come from town officials, and in emergency situations will come from Long Meadow Emergency Management Director, and we always identify who the call is coming from. And another topic that was also spoken about earlier in this meeting regarding Bay Path University. The town was aware that they were exploring the idea of hosting migrant families on the Bay Path campus. This was in direct response to Governor Healy's state of emergency declaration. After careful consideration, preliminary conversations with the town and state agencies, and monitoring this initiative in other places in the Commonwealth, Bay Path determined that migrant families would not be housed on the Bay Path campus. I want to emphasize the comments that were made earlier by select board members and speak in full support of those comments. I was very disappointed to read and hear from people on some of the rhetoric that was happening and the statements that were being made, and I think it completely underscores the need for our DEI committee, and I think it's incumbent on all of us at this table to offer them as much support as we can, because they clearly have a lot of work to do. And there's quite a few projects that are in infancy stage in all sorts of areas that people come to me with. They come to fire or police or our other departments with, and they try to talk those through with us. A lot of things are not ready for prime time yet because pieces need to get worked out. All of us here, all of my department heads, all understand the importance of public comment on things, and this was not a town project, but I don't believe it was ready for the public yet. And unfortunately, people seized on that opportunity and really, I think, put the town in a bad light with the comments that were made. So I hope we're not faced with that again. We have a very good working relationship with Bay Path. We are supported by them, they are supported by the town, and I hope it continues.
Lynn, could I appreciate your comments, but I wouldn't ordinarily ask you to do this, but the next section of your report on the assistant town manager, do you think you could, instead of reading it, just
Yeah, I'll just
condense
summarize
it?
it. Sure.
So we can, because it's in time.
Yep.
Okay,
So the
thank
assistant town manager, I just wanted to highlight this because I think it's a pretty prominent position for the town to be in.
Good.
The assistant town manager submitted a project to the Southern New England American Planning Association to be able to provide a workshop. So she would actually present. And of all the submissions that were made, her submission was selected. And she is co-presenting with an official from the Climate Equity and Environmental Justice Office at Mass EEOA, and Emily Slotnick from Beta Group, who's in the climate resiliency sector there. So this is a great opportunity to, highlight the work that we've been doing in town. The topic is do as we say, not as we do, trial and error and equitable community engagement. And I think it really speaks to the community engagement we try to do on all of our projects and some of the challenges that come with it. And then lastly, in my report, the DEI committee wants to hear from community members. They have a survey that they've launched, and there is a link to it in my in my report here. And we've also linked it on the town website. And they've asked that everyone help spread the word so that they can get some valuable feedback.
Okay, sounds good, and they have one of those symbols, what do they call those symbols where you can?
QR code.
A what?
A QR code.
A QR code, yes, I just barely know what to use it now on my new phone. So you can get to the survey that way. Thank you. Yes, Mark, question?
It's not a question for Lynn. I just think, I want to highlight for this board, if not everybody's seen it, that, and I appreciate that we get now the reports, that we got the water use report. The water use in town is at a historic low, which is good for a lot of reasons, but bad financially. And I mean, we're 30% below our historic, traditional, normal, whatever it is, levels of water use over the first few months of this year. I don't believe, unless something happens differently, because we've gone through now the sprinkler, season, and we're going into now the fall, that we're going to make up that difference. And so there's likely to be a significant shortfall in revenue in our water department. And I point that out, if nobody else has seen it, because I think 6 months into this year, when we get that data, we may have to do something like have an interim water rate change. And I know we don't do that, and I don't know that we've ever done it. But otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in real trouble. And I just want to point that out. I mean, generally the units, if you look, there are 100, 110, 120 units. There's 70 units of water. This is millions of gallons, but still, it's way, way down. And I just want to.
It's way down, and everyone has a green lawn.
Well, right, because it's been raining. I mean, and I get it.
Yeah.
But from a select board point of view and a water department funding, you got to do something. We might.
The
have to do something.
environmentalists are going to be they're shaking their heads, saying, well, we're using less water, it's going to cost more money. This doesn't make sense, but this is reality. Thank you for giving us a heads up.
Yes.
Yes.
Josh. Just to, thank you for bringing that up, Mark. I noticed that, and you've been around longer, so I was wondering how that would affect us, because we still have to pay for the infrastructure, and we're gonna. It is great that we didn't have to water the lawn, but compared to last year, especially where we had it was disastrous, that's something we have to be more mobile about, because as we've seen, we don't know what a summer is going to bring.
I mean, we have a retained earnings fund in our water system, but all I'm saying is we're going to need to look at it, John.
And Mark reminded me while Lynn was talking, just Andrew Lamb had a great editorial in the paper today on Mass Live about, and he is on the Bay Path board, and I just wanted to mention him. He put it much more eloquently than I did, certainly, and from an insider's perspective. So I would encourage people to read that, and thank you for speaking on that one.
Yeah, when I got my first home, and I met my next door neighbor, I said, I'm glad to be here. And they said, well, the person you bought your house from was a good neighbor. They minded their own business. And I was thinking, they minded their own business. Okay, that could be good and bad. But I think that the important thing is with our neighbors is we allow them to mind their own business, to take advantage and make decisions of business that is theirs. And the situation with Bay Path didn't get to discuss this, and the Board of Trustees, because everyone else started jumping on board. And I think we have to allow our neighbors to mind their own business, to take care of their job, and if they want to make a decision that they think is worth discussing, they should, unfortunately, they shouldn't be this open forum of discussion, not based on any facts. And I think it's a sad situation. I just hope that we can avoid something like this in the future. Do you guys have any comments? Okay, so that's our town manager's report. We go to old business. We have approval of minutes. There's just one error I found on page 5 where my name is misspelled, Mike. I don't know, you'll probably catch that if you go over and look at it. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of July 17th?
Yeah. Tom, I also sent Mike a couple of typos, but yeah, I'll make a motion to
Okay.
approve minutes in
second?
July 17th.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor with the amendments? All right, and you were there. So you're
abstaining, yeah.
Abstain. Okay, we next go to the Traffic and Road Policy Committee. We're continuing a discussion from our last meeting when the revised policy was presented. Since that meeting, edits have been made to the proposed updated policy, and the track change version is linked on the agenda. Do any board members want to comment further on this topic or make a motion? Mark?
Oh, wait, I was just going to get started, unless you have a comment, I was going to get started by making a motion, we accept the traffic and roads policy as submitted.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. You have a second for that?
Second.
Second, okay.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment. So
Discussion.
I made more edits. I think I tried to reflect what we talked about last time. I thought Mark made a good point about us not having some non-policy discussion in here. So I moved it to the end with the idea that would go onto the town website and it could link off the application so people could read that. Maybe they won't read it, but there's a question saying, "Did you read it?" So I know what that'll do, but I think that's a better place for the information. And then the other big change I put in was to put some streets solely within the control of TRAG, so that just petitions may not petition for traffic calming measures. And I think I caught the major streets, so Long Meadow, Converse, Burbank, Maple, Frank Smith, Redfern, Williams, Bliss, and Dwight. I don't know, I think that I caught the big ones, but if anybody wants to add anything. Other than that, I really just tried to capture what we put in, and I know Mark made some changes as well, but I think that this is a pretty solid policy.
Josh, Tom, if I may, the only changes we'll have to make to that list of streets is some of them are road, street, avenue. Some of them just have different street names.
There's roads
It's
instead of
Dwight Road,
streets.
not Dwight Street,
Okay.
things like that.
That's right. Okay.
I'm glad you identified
So
that.
that's in the version we got.
Right, yes.
Okay. Any further?
No,
Yes.
I just wanted to commend Josh. I know, Mark, you added as well, and I talked a lot about last time on naming some of the roads and the streets. I think that's important, and I think ultimately the idea of this overall revision helps solve some of the problems that we've been dealing with, in the past, whether it's Farmington, Ellington, Greenacre as well. So I know it's taken a lot of time, but appreciate everyone's input in the community, also on the board as well. And obviously, if we need to make changes down the road, we can do that as well. But the final thing I would just say is, if we're going to make some changes to whether it's street signs or things like that on these roads that are listed here, I think it makes sense to have the board make those decisions, and then there's one-off scenarios where it might be in some of the smaller roads or streets in town and some of the communities that we talked about. So
Well, just for those streets, just for a point, those streets are, I don't think we would make recommendations, that would just be TRAG. They would just do what they would.
The TRAG, yeah, that's right, I'm sorry, that's right, to be more specific, I guess,
Okay.
based on, yeah, the first sentence above the Long Meadow Street there.
Okay, sounds like we're ready to vote on this, right? All those in favor? Accepting, okay, unanimous. All right, great. Next thing we have is we go to new business, and at the planning board meeting in September 6th, the board voted to initiate 2 changes to zoning bylaw, Chapter 315 of the Code of the Town of Long Meadow. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, Ms. Musman's detailed in a memo attached to the agenda, is submitting these petitions to the Select Board on behalf of the Planning Board to start the zone change process. And this has to do with, well, I guess, Corinne, you're here to comment further, and, right? And this has to do with marijuana growing and distribution, right?
Yes, the proposed changes to section 315-4 is the definition section of the zoning bylaw. And there was I was transitioning to a presenter when you were speaking, so I misheard it. But there was a letter that we got from the Attorney General's office after they approved the the general code revisions from annual town meeting last year, that pointed out that while it was not in their scope for review, they wanted to point out to us that our definitions of those 2 marijuana-related bylaws were not in compliance with the CCC as described in the memo. So the solution is simple. We just removed the not-for-profit entity from the definition, and then it's in compliance.
Okay, so you've offered these definitions, and, you talk about procedures, and it says that, application for the design and review, the petitioner can go to the town clerk.
That's the second, she's just talking about the first one.
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of, I guess I'm not sure of what's going on here, because I thought that, at one point, the town voted against marijuana, and so that we would not have to deal with any applications, and so I don't understand why we're.
The town voted against commercial, but this is medical.
This is medical.
And first of all, and second of all, it's just a change of making our definitions and our bylaws consistent with the state.
Okay.
Normally, I would say that, I don't even know why this is coming before the select board. I'd say, based on a recommendation from the zoning board of appeals, the zoning board, that this just be put on the warrant and come before the select board to say, sure, leave it on the warrant, or argue about it when it shows up on the warrant. But at this point, it seems to me, why are we gonna have some input on whether we're gonna make the zoning bylaw change?
So we're trying to be more consistent with providing you advance notice of bylaws that are going to go on the warrant. There have been some inconsistencies.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'll just add, this is as described in my memo, this is a change to the zoning bylaw. It follows the same procedure that a zoning designation change would follow for a parcel. So you'll remember we've had these conversations where when there's a proposed change to the zoning bylaw, it has to come to the select board first per Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, and then the select board refers it back to the planning board. So even though the planning board is the one who's making this recommendation to the town, they need to send it to the select board first as a matter of procedure, and then the select board refers it back to them to kick the public hearing process off.
Okay,
So it's essentially a formality.
So when this goes through when it goes to the town, are people going to ask the select board, is this change going to make it easier for people to sell medicinal marijuana in town? What should we answer them?
No, I would say no. Our bylaws remain the same as they were previously. It's a change in the definition of what those words mean. We are not allowed to be out of compliance with the CCC anyway. So without him being here, I will paraphrase what Attorney Tallerman told me, which is that if for some reason the town votes this down, the definitions won't hold anyway. So either way, we're trying to do what's right so that our bylaws read correctly, but either way, they're not legal and we can't enforce that.
Okay.
They would ask the planning board anyway. At town meeting, it will be a question to the planning board.
Oh, yeah.
On how this will affect.
Right.
Yeah.
But state law supersedes this bylaw anyway, so we might as well change it to be consistent.
So
That's the
do we
point.
need a vote on this
You need to
tonight?
refer this to the planning board.
Okay. Do we want
We
to,
shall, right? Isn't this our policy? Yeah.
do we have agreement to
I'll
refer
move
this to the
we
planning board?
refer these
All right.
zoning bylaw changes to the planning board.
Second.
Okay, all right, all those in favor? All right, thank you, Corinne. Appreciate you helping. Okay. Next thing we have here is a motion. Well, we have the Long Meadow Country Club liquor license amendment to change an hours request. And so there's we have a representative for Long Meadow Country Club in attendance to discuss the amendment to the application.
I don't see anybody in the Zoom. I'm not sure if they were around and hopped off, but I do not see anyone.
No?
Present.
Okay. So I did have some questions for them. We will start with the amended application for change. The current hours for the country club are for serving alcohol. It says 11:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. And the request is to change the hours from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. And the local liquor license authority may grant extending hours between 8 a.m. and 11, extend including hours to 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. But our town, an event, we have basically had, our license, are all of our license from 11:30 a.m. to 11 p.m.?
Most of them. Some of them have days that it's either a later start or they go until, I believe most of them close at 11. There may be one that
Right,
closes
but
at
they don't start much
Nothing
before
starts
11.
before 11.
No, and actually,
Right.
there's a note too that I got back from the ABCC today that no on-premise sales are permitted on Sundays before 10 a.m. as well,
Okay.
so.
And so, Monday through Sunday, so they serve alcohol 7 days a week, and no one's here to discuss
Yeah,
this?
I don't see anyone. I had talked to them previously, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're asking for, let's see, if I do the math, 14, 15, 16, 17, they're asking for 17 and a half more hours to serve alcohol on the premises. Because they now serve from 11:30 till 11 p.m., and they want that extra 17 hours in a week from 9 a.m. till 11:30 a.m., right? So they want to add, and so I guess I wish they were here, because I'd like to ask them a few questions. I'd like to ask them if they've ever met an end-stage alcoholic, because I had a good friend who was a bartender, and he worked in a place, and they served, sort of 11 o'clock till, closing time, 11:30, 2 o'clock. And he would have people leave at 11 o'clock or to 2 o'clock. And they changed the hours to start drinking at 9. And he said at 9 o'clock, he'd see the same people that he asked to leave at 2 o'clock. They'd be there at 9. So they would get a couple extra hours of drinking. And he said after a week or two of that, he had to quit being a bartender. He didn't have the stomach for it, to give people that much extra alcohol. And so, obviously, I'm leaning in the direction of saying we don't need to allow individuals in our town to start drinking at 9 a.m. in the morning. They drink anyways. I'm sure if they checked you know, I see all these nip bottles all the way along Route 5 and Route Converse Street and every street I bike on, and I'm sure that these folks are drinking early and throwing the nips in the, you know, in the garbage cans at the country club. But now they want to have them be able to do it inside at 9 o'clock in the morning. I mean, this isn't like a, you know, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I can't see, I know it seems like it's good. I mean, they'll make more money. There's a lot of money in alcohol, as I've said before. But, Marco.
The only thing my concern is that we have been painfully consistent throughout the town on our liquor license hours, and we've been asked at least several times that I know of to deviate from our normal liquor license hours for one establishment or another, and have not done that in the past. And I believe that, you know, any deviation will open the doors to all deviations, and that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that it's very difficult to tell the kitchen, the meeting house, the, you know,
Thirsty dog.
whoever it is, that you can't open at 9 o'clock or serve Bloody Marys on Sunday morning if we let other people do it. And so I think whatever people vote for, they've got to be prepared to say, we're going to change throughout the town upon request, because I can't imagine how you can say yes to one and no to others. And that includes even the golf courses that we've been holding the line on, you know, because we run the liquor license for the city of Springfield's Franconia Golf Course, because their clubhouse is in Long Meadow. So I just think it's important, and I think it'd be a difficult change to make. On the other hand, this is a more controlled, and I think the argument they'll get is it's a more controlled population than a public restaurant, but nevertheless, it's
Right.
it's a change to the town.
Well, I'd say that, you know, you talk about open control, and the problem with alcoholism is people lose control over it. It starts with social drinking, which goes to binge drinking, which is 5 drinks or more at a sitting. It goes to heavy drinking, goes to alcohol dependency, addiction and alcoholism, and then end-stage alcoholism. And end stage is a point where a person is experiencing very serious health and mental health issues, and all they can do every day is consume alcohol to keep themselves going. They barely eat, and, you know, and any vote that would allow people to move through these steps to be able to start drinking at 9 in the morning, I'm not going to be party to. I don't know if anyone has any other comments. Yes.
Is this all we got from Long Meadow? This monetary transmittal form?
For the change of hours, so
Yeah.
I looked up and down. That's all that I received ahead of time. I didn't see any other application
Right,
besides the change in hours.
That's not the application. That's the monetary transmission form. That means you paid, even though there's no fee.
Right.
So this isn't right.
Yep.
There's something missing. So I don't think we can vote on it yet, because we don't have a full application. Tom, I'm certain, I know that you work with alcoholics. I am certainly sympathetic, and I understand your concern. I don't think it's our job to police or stop alcoholism. But I'm not saying.
Not anyone's job.
Well,
let people
right.
kill themselves.
Well, I just don't think that this would affect that. And I see what you're saying. I totally do.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm more wondering about, and I wouldn't want to vote today because I have some questions for our attorneys, because I've never done an application to change hours. I don't know what our limitations are. I know if somebody's applying for a new liquor license, I know on what grounds we could say we don't want it. It's a public good. But I don't know for this, because statutorily, they could do this. Maybe not 10 a.m. on Sunday, but there's a statutory limit, an application within the statutory limit. I don't know if we can say we don't want it. or if it's because we don't want everyone to ask for 9 AM, if that's grounds for it. So that's my question. I think I would like to explore that more. And I also would like to know what their plan is. Are they opening the bar at 9, or is it so they can have brunch on the weekends? So maybe it's a more targeted application, but, yeah,
Well,
because.
the social drinkers aren't asking for this. I got news for you.
Well, I just don't know if that's true. And I don't think.
Well, you could say
Given an
it's not
extra-
our responsibility, but I believe it is our responsibility.
The last correspondence that I had with them was requesting that somebody attend the meeting tonight last week, and I don't know if there was some miscommunication with that, but I don't know what
This
you
gives
want
us
to
the
do.
authority to set any hours we want to, basically, starting at 7 AM.
And Josh, you're right, it looks like there needs to be a vote of the corporate board on file, but I don't see anything else on file in terms,
Yeah.
anything else required for
So,
making the change in hours
this is
besides it coming between.
Definitely on the agenda.
Yeah.
It's a liquor license amendment on the agenda. And so I would make a motion that we do not accept this liquor license change. And is there a second?
Are you not to accept the application or to deny the application?
Well, whatever application they sent us, there's something they sent us, and I would say that based on their application, their failure to be here, that we would say no. And so that's my motion, if someone wants to second it.
What other documentation is required for this? Is that what we're trying to figure out?
It looks like it's a vote
Is
of the
there-
corporate board.
And that's not attached, obviously.
I mean, we could get that after, but I'd like to see him here. I would like to talk to him. But I understand, are you saying we vote no on the application, or we don't accept the application?
I'd say it's on our agenda, and, they're asking us, can they serve alcohol start at 9 o'clock instead of 11:30? And why waste their time? If we don't want a town that starts drinking at 9 AM, then we vote no. And if you don't care, then you don't second the motion. We wait, let them bring their forms and, approve it, and, but you're not helping. I mean, it doesn't affect social drinkers. It's only gonna affect people who wanna start drinking, start the day earlier. And they're-
I'm with Josh. I mean, I'd like to have them come before us. I'd like to talk to them before I
Okay.
feel comfortable taking a vote on this.
I think it's offensive to say that this is only going to serve alcoholics.
I'm not saying that it's only gonna serve alcoholics, but I'm saying we have to make a decision about the community, our board, we're voted members. People vote us here and say, take care of our town, right? And if allowing people to start drinking that early, in my opinion, I'm taking care of the town by saying no. There's no reason they need to do that they need to serve people.
Okay, but you said if you vote yes, you don't care. That's just not fair. And if I want to go get a Bloody Mary at Long Meadow Country Club at 9:30 on Sunday, or on Saturday, it doesn't make me an alcoholic. It doesn't mean they're doing something wrong.
They're saying every day. They're not saying Saturday. They're not saying Sunday brunch. They're saying every freaking day.
Well, all right, well, that's why they can come in and we can clarify. I'm just saying, I don't think it's fair framing it that way.
Well,
Can I suggest that, since Tom, I don't see a second to your motion, that
Right.
Josh, you propose
Yeah,
an
I move
alternative motion?
I move that we defer this until the next agenda, or table until the next agenda, and request that a representative from LCC come
Okay.
to the meeting.
So we'll do that. All right. I don't know if we need to vote on it. I'll put it on the agenda next time.
No, it's before us, there's a motion and a second.
Okay, so, all right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. All those in favor of moving it to the next meeting? Okay, opposed? Okay. And now is a motion for a temporary extension of hours for New Year's Eve, December 31st, extending the closing hours till 12 midnight. Was all the paperwork in order on that, Mike?
There there is no paperwork, it's
There's
just a
no
request that comes
Okay,
forward to you.
so why don't we just plan on discussing
Last year, yeah.
both of these issues when all the paperwork is in?
Well, I mean,
This one I
for
don't know if
this
there is
one, I think,
paperwork.
yeah, this one, there's paperwork. I think this is much clearer what's going on here, what they're asking for. So I'll make a motion to accept Long Meadow Country Club's request for a temporary extension of hours on New Year's Eve from 11 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Yeah, no problem with that one. Okay, we have a one-day liquor license application for the Knights of Columbus, 4506 St. Mary's applied for one-day liquor license for an event to be held on Saturday, October 28th, from 7 to 9 p.m. at St. Mary's. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. And we have the Long Meadow Adult Community Center Fund has applied for a one-day liquor license for an event to be held at the Adult Center on October 5th from 5 to 7 p.m. and October 13th from 5 to 7 p.m. Is there a motion to approve these two applications?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay. And we have a street closure application, Greenacre Avenue block party application. They want to close Greenacre Avenue from Winona Place to Fairfield Terrace for a block party to be held on Saturday, September 30th from 12 to 6 p.m. with a rain date of October 7th. Is there a motion to approve the block party?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? And Center School PTO street closure application. They would like to close Long Meadow Street east of the Green from Longfellow Drive to William Street for a Halloween Hustle event on Saturday, October 28th from 7 to 11 a.m. Is there a motion to approve this? Yeah.
We can have a motion first. I want to discuss this.
All right, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
And second, okay. Yes, discussion.
I understand the petition for us is to close the street in front of the community house, it looks like. We do that all the time. If we close it, it's not a hardship to the town, it's in front of the community house. But accompanying this, and the reason we're doing it, is for a road race. And I did see that today we got a comment from the police chief. But did anybody follow the road race path? It crosses Laurel. I mean, we've never had a road race cross a major street before.
This is the third time that
They've done this?
race, yeah. There's a police officer helping to cross.
Boy, I missed that before because it's got, I mean, so we're paying overtime for a police officer to run this, to run this road race?
They pay for it.
They hire some
organizers.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, this one, I think this is the second or third time, but I remember last year they definitely had a police officer, and I remember us, I think we talked about it, but yeah, they pay for it.
Yep.
So yeah, you're totally right, because they do, there's somebody watching, it's not a ton of people, so it doesn't even impact traffic really. But yeah, there's a police officer.
I had no sense of how many people are involved and how long it ends up impacting Laurel, traffic on Laurel Road.
You'll have to run this year.
Yeah, it's probably over 45 minutes, there's people, but it's spurts, it hasn't been a problem in the past, I wouldn't anticipate this year.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All right, those in favor? All right. We have our correspondence. I don't know if we have any comments on that, or we could have a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Second, okay, all those in favor? Okay, good night, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in October.